Okay, this is Counterpoints episode 12, and as with all of my content, it's sponsored by Alpha Draft. So if you've been on fire recently with your analysis, then they have all sorts of contests you can play there, and there's more. They've also got League of Legends, they've got Dota 2 as well. If you win there, you'll probably feel like an evil genius. You'll say, hooray! And you'll be here in my world. So it's optional, you don't have to do it, and that's the end of the advertisement. So we're here on Counterpoints episode 12. I'm Thorin, the host. If you don't know me by now, you probably know nothing about Counter, so get off this channel. You don't belong here. So go back to wherever you're from. Portugal, maybe. So, the guests that I have on this episode, I'll start on my left, which is Semmler. Now, you may know him as someone whose name comes after Anders, and then blank, and then Semmler's what goes there. So you always think first of Anders, then you think the best caster, famous voice account, and then you think, oh, and his sidekick, Robin. And then you think, yeah, there's Semmler, there he is. And so, how you doing, Semmler?
Much like, how the world works with you and Richard, right?
Okay.
The
package.
Yeah, the package, exactly. That's the stronger thing. I'm doing pretty well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, mate. Just enjoyed Christmas. Okay, so the other guest is lurppis. Oh, actually, for anyone else who still can't identify, who is Semmler, though? Like, I know he's the guy who talks after the Danish guy. You remember the guy who actually had... a lot of people think that men...
as well, guys. Just pointing that out.
There's this weird stereotype about men, that men can only... that when men have sex, they have sex, it lasts 3 to 5 minutes, and then they get sleepy, they roll over, and they're done for the night. It's a famous thing, 2 pump chumps. But the thing is, there's actually an ancient mystical secret whereby men can develop to be multi-orgasmic, okay? And they can actually delay their orgasm and then sublimate it so that they don't actually ejaculate, and they can come many, many times in a row, and their consciousness gets raised to a next level. Now, I've actually found example of this happening inadvertently, which is that clip when Happy got the deglace against TSM, because you hear like orgasm after orgasm, and it's just bubbling up into this torrent of orgasmic bliss of, Happy! Oh my... And he couldn't never. He did.
You remember?
I loved it, mate. It was wicked. It was wicked. It was a very good clip. You did a good job there. But you were definitely in touch with your sensual side there. So.
I was. I actually tore my pants. That's how excited I was. I actually tore my pants that day. I had to get them stitched up again.
That's where you might recently remember Semmler from, because obviously all that clip is doing the rounds again in all the highlight videos. So our other guest here, lurppis, used to be a pro player for about 7 to 8 years or something, decent amount of time. Yep. And he was a pro in NA when he was the Evil Geniuses in-game leader when they were the top NA team. He was pro in Finland with his teams he had there. And in CSGO, in the early days, he was mainly doing news stuff for HLTV.org. And he was doing initial events. Actually, the three of us did DreamHack Summer 2014. So the problem is that feels like a lifetime ago because of how small the game was in comparison. And the actual on-camera stuff was much, much smaller. So we didn't have a green room. We just went outside of the stage and that was it. You just stood there until it was time to come back on. But obviously that's not a good introduction for modern day fans though, because again they're not going to understand anything I'm saying. So lurppis is a guy who's just really bad at Counter-Strike and was forced to retire. Don't know by who. I'm always told that by Fox fans. And he's not only forced to retire, but he knows nothing about Counter-Strike, and he's just really, for some reason, he keeps writing articles, keeps doing analysis, keeps watching the games, purely to express his anger that bad NIP players have won more trophies than him. As far as I can tell, it's his whole reason is raison d'etre. Like on his wall, he has like a beautiful mind style, like just charts all over of like minus 24 for Freiburg over here on a corner, and then he has like Alu versus Fifth Laren stats over here. He's got a whole room like that. We don't go in there. We just call it Tommy's room. He goes in there when he has to like let off some steam. He comes back out. It had a catharsis. And then he's able to go on with his life again. How you doing, lurppis?
I'm doing good, and I think what you forgot to mention is the greatest achievement of my gaming career, which is that I actually led multiple people to believe that I was fairly good at this game and I knew something about it, which allowed me to have that professional career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You were a bit of a multi-classer as well in your own right? Entry fragging. I saw you mention that today in a series of tweets.
I certainly did not finish a year down 100 in entry frags.
What? You can't break records, lurppis. You're just a normal man. So it's for the special chosen few to be able to set records at History will not remember you in the same way. So, okay. Normally, when I do these shows, they have like a set theme to them. Like, usually, like for example, if it's NA players, I'm obviously only going to ask those motherfuckers about one topic that they might know about. NA maybe, because there's nothing of value they could say about Europe. Get wrecked. So if it's someone like last episode, I had people on who knew about the game to talk about balance stuff. This episode's going to be a bit looser because to me, this episode is about the only actual conversation really worth having in Counter-Strike, which is always who are the best teams, what makes them the best, and what is the dynamic between them. Because I've said this many, many times. I actually usually don't give a fuck about the group stage of like a medium-sized LAN. Like I don't really care if like the third place team in the group's going to be like, well, it used to be someone like Kingwin, you know, maybe if they did really well, they could beat Dignitas and get out. I don't give a fuck about that. I care about like the semis and the final, and when we're going to get to see the teams we know the best match up, because that's the most interesting matches to see, and those are the ones that mean the most. So along those lines, we're going to talk about the best teams. So I want to start with this question. Semmler. Technically, in terms of ranking over the last few months, Envious was ranked number 1. They won the major. They had a streak of tournaments before that. Even since then, they've still had a top 4. Is Envious the best team right now?
No. Fnatic.
Why not?
Because mentally right now, I don't put Envy as a team that can win tournaments, or at least based off of what we saw at EPL, which is the freshest thing in my mind, because that's the last thing we did of this year. Last LAN we casted. EPL is like the difference between Fnatic were raging, Fnatic were you know a little off on their game, but they still managed to keep it together and find a way to get back into the game. We're basically gifted the game by Na'Vi, whichever way you want to look at it. But Envy, you don't get that same style, that same sense of confidence from them anymore. It feels like whatever's been the issue over the past several LANs after winning the major, they haven't figured out a way to solve that, and so there just seems to be some kind of conflict going on in the roster right now that's holding them back from being the best team. Because if you were to put them up against Fnatic right now, I don't think that they'd win.
Even though they actually did win at ESL ACA?
Pardon me?
Even though they did win at ESL ESEA?
Envy?
They beat Fnatic 2-0.
No, I don't know.
In the group stage. They definitely did.
Yep.
It was on Inferno and Cobblestone, right? Or was it Inferno Mirage?
Wait a second.
I think it was Cobble.
So the CA, but then they lost to Na'Vi in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Envy.
By the way, I'm not saying you're wrong. I think Fnatic would win tournaments. I'm just saying that
I'm
in the direct
looking at
matchup,
playoffs. I'm looking at playoffs. Like the group stage just turns into this one big morass of just games, right? Just like games. But when I look at the playoffs, and when I look at the playoffs right now, and the Envy, the shape that we saw Envy in, it might be that they ran up against It might be that they ran up against like the one kind of team that could beat them right now, which is more of a structured team. Maybe the other way to look at it is if they run into a Fnatic, then it's simply just who's hitting headshots, because both of those teams right now, that's all they rely on. They don't have any deeper strategy like, this is what we're going to do. These are their tendencies. This is how we're going to take advantage of that. They don't have any of that. They're like, okay, they're like Old Nip. Run onto the map, get a headshot, and then we'll play off of that. And so whoever's hitting harder at that particular time, that particular map, then I feel like that's the team that's that's going to take the map in the end. So maybe they can beat Fnatic there and that sort of thing. I mean, as they did in the groups. But when you get into a playoff match and you play up against Na'Vi, a team that is more structured, that has a thought process behind how they approach the game, and it's not just Guardian go find shots. This time it was Flamey. This time it was Seized. Zeus even had his moments. Like everybody seemed to be hitting shots on Na'Vi. But then there's also like Starks and this overarching strategy, this game plan of this is what Envy like to do, and this is how we're going to pick them apart. And the Envy that I saw just couldn't handle that. They couldn't figure out how to deal with a more structured roster. So are they the best team right now? I feel like you need to be able to deal with all types of styles if you're going to be the best team. And right now they're clearly struggling with a team, or with dealing with teams like Na'Vi. So granted, there aren't that many of them left. I mean, there's like Na'Vi and Luminosity left. That's pretty much it as far as like the super structured teams. But there you go.
Envious the best team, lurppis?
It's kind of I do sort of feel the same way as Semmler, but at the same time, I'm actually not that impressed by how Fnatic's playing. I think their wins have been kind of sketchy, and I'm not sure that this team's going to be better than the Pro Next Fnatic at all. I think what I've seen in the past is when you have an in-game leader who structures a team and builds everything around it, the team's able to sort of just go off of what they had for a few months, and there's not going to be a noticeable drop in the way they play. But then in a couple months, everything's going to get more loose. People are going to forget some of the things they used to do. And if there's no one to sort of pick up on that, then that's going to be a problem. So I think for now, everyone's happy. Things are still working. Everybody remembers what they were doing with Pronax. But if things don't work in February, I'm not sure who's going to be the one who's going to be able to sort everything out. Because I'm not sure if Flush is able to do it. I'm not sure if Dennis is able to do it.
So, okay, listen, we'll keep this discussion going like this, because I can bring it back around to Envious. So let's do the Fnatic part now then, since you've brought that up. Like, you didn't actually answer the question. You told me why Fnatic won't be the best. But anyway, we'll go that route, because I've got a great reference from your own career that we could maybe use for this, lurppis.
Oh, that's what I was going to use, actually. Those couple months in 2008.
In 2008, for anyone who doesn't know, Lurppis' team in 2007, at the beginning of the year, when there was a lot of discord, a bit like now, where every top team was weakened or they'd changed a player, you know, people like Fnatic was adapting to having Inns in their team. The Poles were always up and down. The Danes were only just becoming really good. The NIP team had disbanded. SK had only made a new team. So at this time, there's a lot of flux, okay? And Lurppis' team at 69 and 28 Roccat were very briefly the best team in the world. Now, after that period of time, at the end of the year, it was decided that they kicked lurppis out of the team, just from internal politics. I know already Fox fans, aha, he was kicked. I mean, actually, just internal politics kicked him. Okay, so anyway, here's the interesting part. What lurppis is saying there is exactly what happened. For the next few months, his team used all the same strats that they had when he was the in-game leader, but were good. They were still a good team. They had big ups because they had incredibly skilled lineups. So they would have upset wins. But here's the crazy thing. They actually nearly always had upset wins over a favourite and then never won the tournament, basically. And then eventually just gradually declined from like potential third, fourth, until eventually they were like a fifth, sixth best team. And then eventually they bent the knee. Lurppis came back in, reassumed the throne. Is it something along those lines, Lurppis? Have I characterised it reasonably?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. Or fair.
So what do you think was going on in that sense of like, was it the similar thing, this dynamic you're talking about, where you can still follow some of the things that worked or a basic blueprint, but eventually you have to change it?
Well, the thing is, if you have someone else who's able to sort of take over all the duties that a leader has, it also depends on the personalities in the team. I mean, some teams don't really need that much structure. Maybe sometimes it works otherwise, but like in my team, there was just no one else. Like I knew it was going to be chaos the second something didn't work, because it was already chaos with me in there when things didn't work at the end, which led to the whole issue of making changes. It started with us making the first bad change, kicking Plasti, which made no sense. But anyways, I think it's the same thing with Fnatic, where things are still good. They got some wins, so everyone's happy. But I mean, you could tell, for example, like JW's role is totally different now. And he's actually, based on what I've seen, not very effective at all in what he does now. So let's say Fnatic loses a couple tourneys. JW's playing bad. This is something that we talked about before the show. I mean, I know why, like, who wanted to make changes in Fnatic, but like, I'm not gonna oust private information. But someone obviously wanted to make a change. I think it's a fair assumption anyway that Pronax didn't just turn down like all the money that's flowing into Counter-Strike just because. I mean,
it has been said on other talk shows, like it was directly implied on other shows and in news that we have seen, that whether or not this was to do with the kick is separate, but that there was supposedly discontent in Fnatic, and some of it stemmed from people like Flusher and Olofmeister, who wanted to play this more poggy, envious style. And since Olofmeister's your superstar player, who you're obviously not letting go of, to some degree you see this in big successful orgs, they tend to try and like curtail things the way that the star wants it, make him happy. And then as you've seen, it's worked in a sense. He's come back to form, but in doing so, they've moved away from the Pronax era, and as a result, Pronax isn't in the team. So I think that's to some minor degree public knowledge. You can speak on that a little, I think.
Okay, so then Pronax was removed from the team to make room for other people, and it's working okay now, but what's next? So let's say continues like this, they start losing some tournaments, eventually they get knocked out early at a tournament, they have issues. Now, who do they blame? Obviously, if the people who wanted to bring Dennis in is, let's say, his old teammates, Olofem and Crims, they're not going to want to kick Dennis. Flash is not getting kicked. Olaf's not getting kicked. All of a sudden, JW, who's playing a role he's never played before, he's playing badly. I actually tweeted a picture of his stats this year. He basically just cratered as a player as soon as Dennis joined. So obviously, he's just automatically the next guy on the chopping block, which already sets sort of a bad precedent for the team. Because like if he thinks about it or starts thinking about it when things don't go well, assuming they stop going so well at some point, that's going to be on his mind, and that's going to be a problem. And I don't think, obviously I could be wrong, I don't actually know how the team functions, but I don't think the team has enough leadership to figure everything out once it stops working. It's more so the case that if they just play through their issues, I think most good teams usually figure things out. But especially the way CSGO is currently being played with little emphasis on tactics and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the next guy who's going to be pointed at when there's issues is going to be JW. And I think the person who could have fixed Fnatic when they do have their next issues actually is Pronex. But like you said, organizations tend to favor the big names when they're forced to make changes, which actually is what Fnatic did not do way back when. But Karn has now seemingly decided that way.
They made the right choice this time.
Keeping me was a mistake. We should not let go of Olaf.
Yeah, because the difference is, think of it the other way. Imagine if they'd done the same decision Fnatic made at the end of 2010, where what happened was they had a choice. Either they could keep the best players in the world, Forest, Gox, Get Right, or they had to keep their core, which was the in-game leader, the equivalent of a Pronax, Khan, and the role player, which was at the time was DSN. Mm-hmm. Now, they chose to go with the original core because they had better ties to the org. Khan was obviously the face of the org in many ways. He did all the interviews, and they believed we can build another team and be a superstar team. Now, they didn't do it to the same extent as the players who left had success, where all that happened was they just gifted Get Right and Forest to their direct rival SK and made SK the best team in the world the next year. So here's the key thing. If they'd have done that this time, I'm going to make fun of Nip later on the show, don't worry about that. So imagine if they'd have gifted to NIP, like Olaf Meister, Flush, that would be the end for Fnatic. You'd never recover from that. That would, like, no matter how, even if you got a cool team together, you can see why that's not the... It's not the P plus EV play. That's not the one that's going to give you the best expected value there. Unfortunately, even though I can see downsides to getting rid of Pronax, if it's really push or shove type scenario, you have to go with Olaf Meister in this scenario. We've seen it. It has paid off. He's amazing again. Mm-hmm. So I've got a question for you, okay? Here's a statement that's going to sound controversial here, Semmler. So a brand new lineup has come together and they've won every event. And at those events, they've beaten all the big teams that have been in their way, Virtus.pro, NIP, Na'Vi. And here's the interesting thing. So a team's won all their events, and I'm now going to give what I think is a big criticism, okay? So when I've watched those wins, I still have no idea what role Dennis is supposed to play in this team. Like, I watched the wins, and it feels like he's done almost nothing. He just hangs around, he gets a kill here and there. Obviously he has, like, bullshit deagle rounds, but that's not someone's role in a team, to just get bullshit deagle kills. And I have to say, when I look at the team, it's the old story. It's like, Olaf Meister and Crims carry the fucking game, and then the others just have to play okay. It's almost like they just have to not feed, and you will win the game. Now, I will say the style of the team is very different. Like this, that's why I made this emphasis. This isn't at all like the old Fnatic. This is like an Envious that happens to be Swedish and is called Fnatic. But what do you think of Dennis's inclusion? Because I'm kind of puzzled because it doesn't seem like he added much to it. He just came in and just does an okay job. That's
the thing. To me, it's all about change. It's just that. It's about a mental change that they needed in the team. They tried to make that change earlier on with Flusha as like the in-game leader, Gfinity, etc., where they got their heads caved in by... Were they Renegades then, or were they still Vox Seminor?
No, they were Vox Seminor.
They were still Vox Seminor back then. But, like situations like that where they were trying to make change happen, and it wasn't until they actually went through with it and got rid of Pronax that it seems like Olaf Meister and Crims have now come back to the fore because they've got their old LGB buddy back with them, right? It's that, it's like back together with Dennis. This is the original way we wanted everything to go, but it didn't work out. Now it is. We're in Fnatic. The thing is, I think in their minds they're just like, oh, okay, Pronax, he couldn't get frags. Now we've got Dennis in the back line. He can get frags. So if we screw up, it's all right. We can count on Dennis to get frags for us. Where we probably couldn't count on Pronax in the same sort of way. And I think that's literally it. It's just he's supposed to be a catch-all guy who's there to just fill the gaps.
I think part of that is also that obviously if Pronax isn't going to call, then he really has no place in the team, right?
Right.
Like he'd have to be a coach if he doesn't call.
Well, even though we saw like a individual performance, like a spike from him individually in the frags, but then that's probably only because Olaf and Crims weren't really hogging everything, and Pronax just happened to be the man to step in and get the headshots.
And by the way, I'm gonna go ahead and guess that within the next I guess the next month is gonna. And now there's already some tournaments in January. I'm guessing within the next 3 months, Flusha is gonna stop calling, and Dennis is gonna be calling.
See, that's what's weird to me.
I could see that happening, yeah.
That's the funny thing. When they brought Dennis in, that's what I assumed the role would be. Like, Fragger,
exactly.
Basically, I thought the role was to be like what Exist used to be in NIP. A solid Fragger for an in-game leader, but run a loose system. Like he did in LGB. I assumed that was the concept. So actually, I was surprised when he came in, and they were like, no, he's just a player, and Flush is the in-game leader now. Not least because I actually think... If there's 2 players in Fnatic, okay, I'm going to say it, who I think should never be allowed any in-game role, say, it's JW and Flusher. Because the whole thing is, they are the chaotic element. They're the people who want to buy a CZ every time, and stupid force buys, and just try and get really weird pushes that get kills. They're the people you want to have on the outside where you integrate them to the system, but like you have like a system that they're coming into. Like, if you build the base of the system elsewhere, the obvious base to me, if you have Fnatic, was Crims is like the support player. We have him in the solid places. We're going to give over favourable positions over here. Pronax is going to do whatever in between. And then Flusher and JW at different ends of the spectrum are the wild cards. Like, Flusher's obviously the clutch round wild card in that sense. JW's the entry fragger, just causing chaos. But that's a system that you can see the balance I've created when I do that. When you make Flusher the in-game leader, you get what you have now. Where it's almost like Fnatic have gone to that envious stage where they're almost better on force buys than they are on a full buy. And that's a really worrying sign if you're going to be the best team in the world. The best team in the world is supposed to be the best when they have the full buy. And they have the setup that they want. These guys love to do the envious style, just get the half buy and then do like crazy pushes.
Well, remember when you were I forget which show it was on, but you were discussing. Oh yeah, it was when you were discussing the RA pistol, and you guys were talking about like who's the stronger CZ75 player or whatever, like who's the best one. And I wrote to you on Twitter saying, Flusha stands out to me, at least individually, as the best CZ player. Every time he picks up that pistol, he seems to get some kind of kill out of it, if not 2. You're just waiting for it to happen. His positioning with that pistol is ridiculous. And yeah, you're right. That does, when you think about it now, it's very much of an Envy sort of, except that it's almost like weaker. That's what it really frustrates me when it comes to thinking about Envy, is that to me, when you think about Envy, it's just like everybody's got their role. It's super clear cut. It's like, there you go. Kiyoshima Rifler, Kenny Opper, Apex entry. It's like everybody, slots in really nicely. Boom. And then it should be this machine that you can just throw at people. And there you go. CZ, doesn't matter. Tech 9, CZ, Rifle. Everybody knows what they're doing on that team and it should be good, right? That's why it's kind of frustrating to watch Fnatic, just because it's just like, well, it shouldn't work, but somehow they are still like just raw aiming talent and Dennis Deagle headshots, they're still able to actually, get these kills going. I mean,
here's the problem, Semmler. I'll tell you right now the reason why I think Fnatic will drop back a bit. I still think, here's the thing. I think teams like Envious, as long as they fix their shit, TSM, Fnatic, Virtus.pro, they should all win tournaments.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Fnatic will be dominant, and here's why. Because when Fnatic was amazing in the summer, the actual team wasn't that amazing. They used to scrape wins, and they used to get by-in like an upset win over someone or a comeback win. And part of the reason they could do that is because Olofmeister was like unreal for so long. And I used to say, he almost carries them on some maps. And in some maps he certainly did. Obviously Cash, Train, it was all on him on these maps. So I used to say to people, that can't be your basis. Just have the best player in the world, maybe ever, just going off all the time. That's not a strategy. Like, think of Envious in all the times that they've been really good major winners. That's when the team's totally balanced. When there's no superstar who goes ham every game, and actually no one's the best player in the world. Everyone just has, I have a game, then you have a game, then he has a game. That can't happen in this Fnatic team. They're not going to have games where Olofmeister just chills back and does nothing and someone else takes over. At the moment, he's doing it again. He's like, they're having all these scenarios where he just goes fucking ham on a map or a half or a round, and that wins them the game in close fashion. So I don't think that's a consistent fashion, not least because you're asking Olofmeister, can you just be like the best player in the world again for all of next year as well? Yeah, no problem, mate. I mean, that's easy to do, right? I'll just pop another year on my rec. Like, people run out of those peaks of form. Eventually, you just become a good player again, just another player, not the best. Like, I can't see that lasting, basically. I can't see that lasting 6 months, him just being a beast every tournament.
And something to add to that is, like, in some teams, let's say Guardian gets set up for kills. Kenny is in Titan, he got set up for kills. Olaf doesn't get set up for kills. Olaf works for his kills, but he still gets them.
I mean, he obviously creates plays, sure. He makes the play for himself. And also in this team, he's not going to be set up for kills. Like, tell me which player is going to flash for him into a site or is going to run in with him and take the side. It's not going to happen. I mean, what's funny is the strain on Crims must be even more in this team. Because to me, he's the only player in the whole team who's like super stable in terms of the way he positions himself. He still has all that quality going for him. Olofmeister at the moment because he's so exceptional, he can look stable in ways that he probably shouldn't be, like he can do shit that won't work for other players. So to me, essentially, to draw it back to the Flusher discussion, essentially the big problem for Fnatic is when I talk about consistency and winning a lot of tournaments, I have to be able to look at what you can do almost every tournament. So with the old Fnatic, they had certain maps they were always going to be the best on. If we can get them to those maps, we'll always have favourable matchups there. Okay, in the past we had this setup like I described where we didn't have to have JW go crazy every game, etc., etc. At the moment, it feels like in Fnatic, a couple of people who are doing really well probably have to keep doing well for all the coming months.
Right now, I'm just thinking about who's going to be who's going to keep their tempers in check, and I guess the only answer for that is Dennis. Looking at how it played out over ESL ESCA, every time you looked over there, it was either rage from Crims, rage from Olaf, rage from Flusha, or JW. Like there's a lot of rage on that team. They have a tendency to really.
By the way, we've never seen Crims rage.
What, are you kidding me, dude? He fucking hit his keyboard so hard the keys went flying off, and the admin had to come over and hand them.
In the past, I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah, that's the thing. That's why there's this tendency, because Pronax used to talk about this where there was quite a bit of rage in the team, and he would have to try and actively calm them down because that just would directly mess with how he. I'm also wondering, if this is something that's not totally out there, but that this might have been another reason to give him the axe, is because Pronax also needed that calm. He needs a calm team, I think, to call. And so when the rage starts to come through, or the frustration starts to come through, it makes his job more difficult as the leader to think, about what needs to happen in the round when he's worrying about, Crims fisting his keyboard, basically. So I'm wondering right now, it always seems like Dennis is that player. We're always talking about him oh, he's got the experience. Oh, he knows how to, he can help call, he can help lead, and he can help, be this barometer, to keep the team on an even keel rather than just letting everything blow up. I think he's going to be the linchpin going in for Fnatic now as well, just because it seems like it's still there, that tendency to really get frustrated and to express that frustration by pounding your fist into your keyboard, right? That's not good. You need to have somebody who's going to be there to be hey, bro, calm down, high five, whatever, put it out of your head. That was last round, focus on the next one. What do you think about that, lurppis?
Did I hibernate for a couple years or something? Or why are people assuming Dennis is going to be this leadership force just taking care of everything? Because I've never seen anything that suggests that he would be able to do it, because he's never done it before. It's not like LGB was this mastermind of a team with 4 bad players and existence just leading them to victory. Oh, I mean, come on. There's no basis to suggest, not that it couldn't happen, but there's just no basis to assume that it would happen. That Dennis would be the one calming everybody down, just making sure everything works.
I don't think it's leadership in that way. I think it's jokes or something to alleviate it, or to try and keep people from flipping out. Does that fall under leadership, under the leader's role?
But from my experience, the people who rage, they usually if you try to talk to them, they usually actually get more annoyed. So all you can really do is I don't really know. If you win, people don't complain. I think that's the easiest way to put it. That's what I've noticed. When you win, things usually tend to work out. And second of all, I think all that raging and whatever, I think it comes and goes. All right. I mean, no one's really just angry all year round.
Well, I mean, the best example of that is obviously Virtus.pro, because they know themselves, we're locked into this roster. We can't make this roster change because we're always going to be good again if we wait. So you notice they do have times where they rage out, and some of them are pissed off at this guy and he thinks he's not playing his role. Obviously with Pasha, they changed all the shit up there. There's obviously times where there's resentment or it's not going well and they're having bad tournament results. But the difference with their team is because they're locked into the mentality, we're not going to make changes, they do ride it out. They'll wait the 2 to 3 months and they always come back again. The difference is that's quite rare because other teams have more options to change. So in other teams, unless you really have that mentality, they'll just make the panic change, or they'll just get bummed out and they'll make that roster move in that sense. So I think I actually agree with you on that sense. I've always thought one of the most overrated things, I'll give you some experience from esports itself. One of the things I always do when I'm doing analysis for tournaments is I actually ignore things that players told me about personal relationships behind the scenes. Because I think that's the most overrated, exaggerated opinion that you'll get in the scene. What will happen is you'll hear from a team, oh yeah, this guy's playing really greedy in our team, yeah, and we don't like the way he's playing, he has to change. Turns out that's Get Right. Well, he still plays the same style. He's fantastic, and he was much better than all his teammates. So guess what? They all shut the fuck up now. They don't say any of that shit now while they're riding Daddy Get Right's fucking back to half-decent placings. Well, it's interesting how that works, isn't it? Suddenly they love him. Suddenly, let's go back to that style. Yeah, it's working out really well. Love you, bro. Let's sign up for some more years. Like, the stuff like that is really overrated. Because really, if you're being real, like, here's the analogy I always give. That's just like day-to-day frustrations that people have in an office, okay? So they go home and they tell their husband, like, my boss has been a real asshole to me today, and, you know, that idiot in the corner kept, like, talking about his girlfriend or something. They don't really hate the guy, and in fact, that might just be like venting a little bit of steam. They go back tomorrow, and it might be fine at that point in time, you know. In a week, they might have forgotten all about that. It's not like that. They're not like they're going to change job tomorrow because they complained at that, or they're going to be fired tomorrow, you know. I think that's where it's more like in teams in that sense, because they get over that shit if you win, or if things just turn around in terms of results. And that's the other thing I just want to say, is that the most overrated thing in esports is where did I miss a meeting and you guys all turned into like 43-year-old hippie women from Sedona in California who like fucking like look at people's auras to tell what they're like spiritually and like read crystals and are like, the Reiki therapy's really made me feel great in my life. I feel cleansed. Like, when did feelings become the most fucking important things in video games? Here's the thing. Everyone right now takes what's said in interviews and they take the feeling and they make that the basis of what happens. So they say, right, well, our team was feeling we were lacking confidence, and, you know, we didn't really feel good and we didn't trust each other, and that's why we played bad. Wrong way round, motherfucker. You're playing badly, you don't have good synergy, your tactics are bad, therefore you can't trust each other. You are playing badly individually because you don't fit together, therefore you have it engenders negative feelings, and that leads to not trusting each other, not feeling confident. That's how life works. It's the other way round. You do something, then you think about it, then feelings get involved. Stop catching feelings, start being a fucking man. This is war. This is no place for feelings. Stoicism. That is what will get you through. In a war, you get down in the trenches, you leave that guy behind if he's dead. If he's dead, sorry, the carrion can have him. That's what I have to say, Semmler. Do you have any thoughts?
No. You sound like Tony Soprano in the first episode when he's talking to, you know. Is that what you were going for there?
No. Just, it was off impromptu, mate.
I don't know, but that's what it sounds like, right? You know, what happened? Where did these feelings come from? You know, just stoic. You know, keep it all bottled up, keep it all hidden. Have a cigarette, have a glass of whiskey, and get to work, right? You know, that's how it should be, right? There's a strong argument for that as well. It's just it feels like sometimes that's just going to blow up or melt down, depending.
Yeah, but you look at the last era. So okay, envious. That was like that all the time. There was always this bubbling thing between Shocks and Happy that was always gonna. Here's the thing: it wasn't always gonna have to come to a head and blow up like that. It was always coming close to it. It was always like, we're at DEFCON 7. It's pulled back. Oh, they won a tournament. Whew. Good job, they won that one. Yeah. Oh, they went to a Gfinity. That Fnatic went out. Whew, they got a trophy. Whew. It's gone down again. The beast is back in the cage. Lock up the door. You know, it's like living in the little village next to Dracula's castle. You know, he's coming down every now and then, but then he goes away again. You can forget about it, get back to normal life again. But then the night grows, the full moon comes down. You better lock all that shit up, mate. You better be in bed with a little candle next to your bed.
Was that
that's going to happen. That was a howl, mate. It's good, wasn't it? So, yeah. You see the analogy. But I think that stuff's a bit overrated in that sense. Like, I think unless it's really like life and death stuff, it does get figured out, like Lurppis said. It comes in waves.
I'm just putting that forward as something that needs to be that needs to be considered for
sure, yeah.
As the frustration mounts, and I do think it is going to mount because they unless they've spent these last 3 weeks of downtime just completely revamping and looking at the map, seeing what they need to do, start getting some fixed roles, everything together, right? You know, so like an actual structure up around the team rather than just run around, like they say it themselves, like Flesh says it himself, where he's just like, we kind of just run around and get headshots and then see how it goes, right? You know, that's not going to fly. Once that's not going to fly versus, you know, a TSM or an Envy or somebody who's able to take your face off if you make a mistake. So unless they spent these 3 weeks, fixing things, I think that the struggle is going to lead to even more frustration on the team.
I don't even think that it needs to be like a TSM or Envy, because I put it this way: back in the days when I played, I always thought that Fnatic was easy to play against because they were easy to read. You always knew what they were going to do, so then all you had to do was just kill them while they did it. Whereas when you played someone like MTW, which is, again, MTW, then you actually had to think, which made it harder because like you might get easier shots in general. They're not going to shoot back at you as fast as Forest was back then, but they're going to make those shots harder for you in other ways. That's sort of the thing where I think like when Fallen gets his team going or Existence gets Titan back, and I actually think Titan's going to rebound this coming year a little bit. I think when that happens, those guys are going to outthink Fnatic and find ways to sort of just abuse the way they play. I mean, even with Pronax on the team, Fnatic somehow always struggled with Titan, which I think people forgot about because Titan just kind of...
No, it's true. Pronax always said he was the
wayside in the middle of the year. Yeah, exactly.
Here's the thing, Lurppis. Every time I ever had these behind-the-scenes convos with Happy, which were essentially, by the way, just mad, no-holes-barred trash-talking sessions, I used to literally... What I would always do is I would draw him into traps. So I'd lead him down a road where we were talking about, like, I'd be talking about, like, this team's won more than this in this scenario, and this player was better. And what I would always be leading him into is, by omission, by never talking about who'd actually won more, I would lead him to think that was where he'd be trying to get one step ahead of me. So he'd go, but we always won more than Titan. I always won more than Existence. And I said, is winning the metric of if someone thinks right? Okay, is this your philosophy? And he said, yeah, if you win, you must be better. And I said, why is it? And this is the key thing. I said this before the Envious team finally won a series off Fnatic. I said, well, you've never beaten Fnatic. Existence has beaten Fnatic many times, and you acknowledge with a much worse team. So if winning is the only metric and the only truth in this world, then I believe we've arrived at a conclusion.
At an impasse here.
Trap cards all day long, mate. That's all it was, just trap cards. And you know what his answer to that was, Semmler? He didn't attempt to address the argument. He just said, this is bullshit. If we were talking in French right now, you wouldn't be able to do this. And I was like, we'll never know, mate. We'll never know.
That's what you should have got me and how to translate it for you.
Whoa, now we have to find a way to maybe we just cancel the show. And then we re-air this after Semmler has had a conversation with Happy at the next tournament. And then we see if that happens. Because, he might watch this and we lose the opportunity.
So, okay, this is an obvious position, by the way, to spiral this back into the Envious topic. Because here's the thing. All the things we've talked about now and that we're predicting will happen to Fnatic is happening to Envious right now. Where they had the little 6 streak where everything worked great and all the players were having great performances and they were winning everything. And what's funny is a bit like Fnatic, they were doing the more limited map pool and they were just exceptional on these certain maps they kept getting over and over. But now things are starting to go badly, and now it does seem like they have issues. The leadership issue, how do they readapt the team? Like, do they just keep going with the old style? Do they try something new? It feels like they're trying something new. What do you think with that, Semmler? What about Envious right now in that sense?
It's maybe some time off. I mean, they have the 2 weeks now. They were at the end of a 5-week grind, like a long streak there towards the end for EPL. So maybe having a couple of weeks off to recoup, to step away from the game. Happy now has time to sit down and try and figure out what he needs to do to fix this. Because this is just going off of what I saw at the LAN, because we were sitting close enough to be able to hear them, right? And I stood behind them in their first on Dust 2 versus Na'Vi, right? And just tried to listen to the comms, right? Because we don't get the streams of the comms anymore, so we don't get that insight. But obviously, if you're not casting, you're able to just stand behind the teams. You do it, so you can try and hear in. And what I was hearing was really frustrating to listen to. I just kind of wanted to be like, time out. Stop, right? Why aren't you talking? Why is this guy doing all, Apex was trying to do a lot of the calling instead of Happy. Happy seemed to be really frustrated and not able to put together any kind of plan. The comms were really shaky on the team as a whole. And then NBK, the only time that I heard NBK speak was in halftime, where he basically said, this is shit. If we don't get our shit together, we're going to get run over. This is where the tournament ends. That kind of pep talk, right? So get your heads in the game and let's go, right? But at any point, not at any point did that come up during the half, when, really you need to kind of stop this landslide that's coming at your face. So they just sound like, from start to finish, really shaky right now to me. Like, they don't really... There wasn't a leader, a leader figure to come in there and just be like, guys, shut the fuck up and do what I tell you to do, and we'll win this, right? There wasn't any of that.
I mean, that basically sounds like what I wrote about some time ago on Splice, where I said that the reason that Envious suck now, I mean, comparatively, is that in the beginning everything worked so well they didn't actually have to work for it. They basically all just showed up and they just clicked on heads better than everybody else, aside from Fnatic.
Sure.
And they just won so much, so easily, seemingly. I mean, it's not like they had some great system. They started winning the second Apex and Kenny has joined. It's not like they put in tons of practice and had to sort of work through the hassle of integrating new players onto the team. They were just incredibly good from the get-go. And I'm going to go ahead and guess after they won the last major, which, by the way, it already helps for teams when teams get knocked out or they're not playing and they actually get to spend time watching a team play live, as opposed to just catching a couple online games or whatever. that already helps you in figuring out how to beat a team. Because like as crazy as it sounds, it's actually like you actually don't have time to watch a lot of like full demos. Like you, of course, you fast forward through demos and whatever. Maybe I'm not sure if Envious does, but most teams do. But it's not actually even remotely the same as being forced to watch something in real time. So when you're sitting at a tournament, you'd be knocked out. You have nothing to think about. You're just watching those games. That's when you actually, from my experience, come up with like the most ideas of how to beat a team. Because you're sort of just forced to just sit there, you're looking at the guy's screen. You're like, well, this guy just does this all the time. Or like, well, like it'd be really easy to kill. And that's. At home, you have other options. You can just go on Twitter, you can read news, you can do whatever, you can play Dota, go play CSDM, you can do a million other things. But those times, I think, is when people really learn how to beat other teams. And obviously, Fnatic got knocked out early by Envious. TSM got knocked out early by NIP. And everybody else I mean, I guess you sort of figure Envious is the top dog, so that's the team you pay attention to. But ever since then, they just haven't looked good at all.
So here's one of the areas. Here's the funny thing. I actually really missed out on an opportunity to look super smart. So one of the... I know, I have so many, Sam. Like, you're probably thinking, which one? Which particular incident? I thought you always looked super smart, but I could have looked even better, mate. So one of the areas, which, by the way, no fan gives me credit for, but 2 tournaments into Fnatic starting their winning ways in 2014, I did a video that was called The Fnatic Era, and I explained why I thought this team had the chance to make this their era and what their strengths were, like the maps that they were good on, the style that they had, the players that were the strengths, you know? And so it's not that I had some super like prescient power to look in the future. It's just that at the time I could see things working that like, oh, this can be consistent. Like this can work in this way. These maps are going to be good against these opponents. That's another thing I broke down. And so in similar fashion, because you notice one of my areas of focus here is the maps, because so many people think, here's the problem with maps, Semmler. Because people watch so much online Counter-Strike, they really do think that every good team can play every map. And the reason why is because they see every team play every map. So, for example, they saw NIP online in the last few months play some train games and win them. They don't realise offline, Nip was almost never playing train and wasn't a train specialist. So they think to themselves, yeah, but they could do it like they did online. Offline's a different story, obviously, and your map pool has to be a lot stricter. So looking at the maps, one of the first things I noticed when Envious was winning, even before they won the major, was actually, I don't think just in terms of maps right now they can be the dominant team. And one of the reasons why was, I've never seen a team that was number one that had such a limited map pool. Like basically, their whole, and so what I'm essentially, just to finish the point on the first part was, I should have just made my video then. My video then should have been why Envious won't be the number one team. Whereas now, it's kind of anyone can say that because they've dropped off and they've lost the tournament, so it wouldn't actually matter as much now. But one of the points I would have made in terms of map pool is you look at the maps that Envious is really strong on, right? So the best 3 for them is Cobble, Cache, and Inferno. Cobble, they're obviously amazing on, absolutely incredible. Like that Lost to Na'Vi, anyone who doesn't realise that's their best map. Like that's extremely rare that they'd lose to. Yeah, you can't put that one down as like they're bad on Cobble. They're the best Cobble team in the world. Cache, they're extremely good on, but most teams at the moment are afraid to play Cache, except Fnatic, interestingly. So I hope one day to see that matchup. But most of the top teams, VP don't want to play it, Na'Vi don't want to play it, TSM don't want to play it. Most teams are going to stay away from Cache. So the main maps you're going to see Envious on in the past was Cobble and Inferno if they can. Those are the 2 maps they're amazing on, because the Cache is getting taken out. Here's the problem. So you got 3 maps you're really sick on. Go beyond that and it starts falling apart completely. Because right after that, okay, we've got Mirage and Dust 2. You're already getting in big trouble right there. They're like a 50% team on Mirage. Mm-hmm. And Dust 2, people still think in their mind, oh yeah, but Envious, Dust 2. No, mate. Dust 2 was Shock's Envious. Remember, that's Shock's best map. This Envious is actually reasonably shaky on Dust 2. They've lost more times than they've won on it offline with this lineup. And then forget the other maps. They have never played Overpass. That's a permanent ban. And then Train, they've played a few times and lost most of them. Amazingly, the one they won was the Major, and that's the one everyone remembers, and obviously that was the big win. But again, that was extremely close. And so when you look at someone's map pool of 7 maps here, this is already looking bad. Like, where's the improvement going to come here? Basically, it has to be Dust 2 or Mirage. You have to get much better on one of those maps.
And by the way, something that's in play now here is, I mean, obviously it seems like Nuke is coming back. It remains to be, like, if he does come back and he takes over one of the maps to spot, that's going to sort of change the scene quite a bit, depending on which map he replaces if he does come back.
Mm-hmm.
Is it known which map it would likely replace?
This is a similar question.
No, this
wasn't the ridiculous notion something like it would be Inferno or something similar?
Yeah, there was
I think I heard something like that, right?
that was making its way around the rumor mill. Yeah, that it would be Inferno to get a rework. I mean, to try and solve these problems about the choke points, perhaps with the smokes.
Okay.
That, and it's just an old map. So which
I think it's an abomination. Inferno's still one of the best maps to watch.
Yeah,
It's a
I agree.
fantastic map.
I think so too. But what do you like? Which map? Okay, this will be a question for
Okay.
you then. Which map would you want to replace right now in favor of Nuke?
I can already tell you, mate. So here's the thing. The reason why it annoys me that people would put forward Inferno is I liked Nuke, okay? I like the harsh skill of being very good in that very particular way.
Sure.
But I can acknowledge that for most people, Nuke was boring. I can understand why it's boring to them. Here's the difference. I don't think Inferno is boring in that way. I think even when Inferno gets really one-sided, it's not boring. Here's the thing. If I had to pick among all the maps we have now, I think a lot of these maps are pretty good right now. So believe it or not, the map I would pick to replace is actually DOS 2. I think it's the map that right now has the least value. No one at the moment's playing it in really beautiful fashion. I mean, hell, look at TSM. TSM was the best team in the world. They were the team that solved CT side DOS 2. And yet, look at that. They still couldn't win all the time. They still had times they did get upset on it, because I don't think it's a map where it's actually possible. I think it's actually... Here's the thing. In terms of individual skill, it's one of the most individually skilled maps. In terms of team skill, I think it's a map that will always limit team skill. And you can never be... there will never be a team on Dust 2 offline who has an 80% win rate. I don't think it'll ever happen over a big enough data set. Whereas, Fnatic did have an 80% win rate on Inferno back in the time when they were the best. Teams like Envious have been godlike on Cash or whatever it might be. You can have these amazing runs. It's going to be extremely hard to ever be really good on Dust 2.
I thought you were going to say Inferno there for a second, just to
Get real, man.
Little nuts there for Happy.
Get real. What do you think of this? If you had to replace the map, Dust 2,
Yeah.
are you going to stand up for Dust 2, Semmler?
Am I going to stand up for it? I would think that.
I mean, which one would you suggest if not?
No, that's the issue. Going through them right now, Cash is too.
The only
all the
other one
maps
I
are
would
too
even
recent.
suggest, here's the only other one I would even suggest, and they won't because it's recent, is if say you put a gun to my head and I can't pick Dust 2 as the map to remove, then I'm going to remove Cobblestone. And
Really?
the only
You're
reason
gonna remove Cobble?
Mate,
Okay.
people go 90% to one bomb site, and everyone knows that, and you still can't stop
Sure.
it. That's not a great dynamic for a map. Now, it's got other qualities that are good about it, which is it is such a big map, and you have to make a lot of gambles as to where you rotate as CT. I can see a lot of good things about it, but if I have to pick a map other than Dust 2, you got a gun to my head, I need all the rest of the maps. I think all the rest have value to them. I'd go with Cobble in that one, if I had to, Remember, it's a tough choice. I don't want to remove any of these maps myself, but...
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue. That really is the issue. Which one? You think
Well,
about you go to map, and you're thinking, okay, well, this is good about it. This is good about it. So, tell me, it sounded like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say the map pool is pretty good right now. Why are we forcing change for no reason? Let's say there were a bad map, then yeah, let's try to improve that. But we've got 7 pretty good maps right now. I too like Nuke, even though it was very one-sided. So I'm with Duncan on that. But I also understand why certain fans think that it's boring, because it's a lot of 12-3s, 13-2s. So if you don't want to bring that back. And by the way, I'm not at all convinced that Valve knows how to make Nuke all of a sudden a lot better. Because remember, they already changed Nuke quite a bit coming in to Go, and I don't think it was for the better.
And then ignored a bunch of the things that Volcano had done in his version, and
Yeah, that's the main issue.
track record wasn't so great on that one.
No.
I think Existence is going to, cry big tears if Nuke rears its ugly head once again. Actually, never mind, because they can bail out of majors anyways. Now they don't need Nuke to do it. But there you go.
So here's a question: if you had to pick one, Lurppis, which would you pick?
Yeah.
You have to eliminate one. Gun to your head.
I'm gonna try to think of something else than Dust 2, because I think it'd be too boring to just say Dust 2.
Let's all agree. Come on.
Okay, put it this way. Actually, this is gonna sound weird, because it's actually my favorite map, in the sense that I really like how it looks. I like how it plays. I like watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd get rid of Cash just because people don't play it. There's so many good teams that don't like playing Cash. I think that's why I would be willing to see that go. It's my favorite map.
Here's
But
the thing, though.
If other teams don't play it, it doesn't add any value to have it in the pool.
Okay, so you're right there. That's a good point. But that was also another point that did go against Nuke, if you remember, is that there was like the 3 or 4 teams that were gods, and everyone else just said, we won't play that, and then they just played it amongst each other.
It was like Train as well, same situation.
Yeah, similar scenario with the old Train. But here's the thing about that. Here's a prediction for you, Lurppis. I actually think that's something that will change in the next 3 months. I think Cash now will become a big battleground, because first of all, both Envious and Fnatic are really good on it. So I can see them playing each other on it. In the past, it's true, Virtus.pro don't really like it because they've got such a wide map, but it's one they don't do. Na'Vi bans it anyway. But here's the other team I think will change. I think TSM has to start playing Cash. Because for me, the problem TSM has at the moment is their map pool is good against most teams, but against teams like Envious and Fnatic, they're going to end up playing the maps that are their best maps. So instead, I feel like if you're TSM, one of the maps you can start going at if you want to have a chance to beat a Virtus.pro or a Na'Vi, you have to force them to ban Cash. So as a result, I think if TSM can be good on Cash, certainly. We've seen some of their players, like Zipnix is basically a specialist on fucking Cash, but he doesn't get to play the map. They torture this guy. So I think that not only should they start playing, but I've actually said this to some of the guys from Liquid, since I know they're fantastic on Cash for a low-level team. I've said, you guys have got to make this like your primary map. You've got to try and play this against every European team you can get it at. Because the difference is, if a TSM is going to say, right, I'll ban Cobblestone, you can pick Cash. If Navi's going to say, if Virtus.pro is going to say, I'll ban Dust too, you got to pick Cash. That's your chance to get an in, and in doing so, will make the top teams start to play it more. And I think that's how the meta game will shift a bit.
I agree, and also if Nuke does come back, let's say to replace Inferno, Navi has to choose between Nuke and Inferno. I mean Nuke and Cash. They're going to play Cash, right? They're not going to start playing.
Probably, yeah.
So that's another team who all of a sudden are going to have to start playing it. In that case, I think.
Because you have to realize it's not like Train where some people ban it because they just don't like it, right? The reason people banned Train when it first came into the pool again is just because it was so new, people didn't feel comfortable. So I think every new map that comes in initially will get permabanned, and then people work their way in. So I agree. When Nuke comes back, and even if they fixed it somehow, I think it'll immediately start being permabanned for most teams until they decide to make it a map they can play, you know?
Yep.
Okay, so now we talked about 2 big teams. Mm-hmm. I think we have to talk NIP.
Yeah, I was waiting for it.
Okay, is that the way it goes in your order, Lurppis? It goes Fnatic, Envious, NIP. Okay.
It doesn't. But I can't wait.
Okay, you need to get into it now. Okay.
Can you not wait for the get right
Usually you're supposed to wait for dessert till after you finish the meal. But okay, we'll have a little bit now. So here's my question, Lurppis. If I told you before you knew who was joining, most of the NIP players will stick together for next year, what would you have thought of that move? Does it have any merit to it, do you think?
How early? It depends.
Let's say 2 months ago.
2 months ago, I would have told you you're crazy.
That they were going to stick together.
Yeah, because that would have made no sense. Now, like I pointed out a couple days ago, all of a sudden, like now that you know it, it starts making sense, because like that thing I mentioned on Twitter where Forrest was supposed to leave Fnatic, I think a couple times, and sort of just pulled back at the last minute. I mean, those guys, they just don't like change, right? And they're obviously very comfortable with the way things are going, even if they're losing. So, I don't know. And then obviously all the issues with the payments from NIP as an organization, I don't know if all of them have been taken care of.
I think that they're going to be making a shitload more money as well next year.
They
realized that the org must have realized, wait a second, you know, we really need these guys. If they're going to book on us, we have nothing as a brand. Like, we lose everything. And so I hope that the players, you know, understanding this, went into the negotiations saying, you're going to give us everything that we ask for. And NIP actually, you know, went ahead and did that, because otherwise, if they're there and they aren't getting a percentage of the merch, they aren't getting they aren't, you know, like just slamming the org and saying, this is what we want and you're going to give it to us, otherwise we book. I'd be amazed.
I'm sure that it's exactly what happened, but still, put it this way: I tweeted a couple days ago that the worst player I think that NIP could, conceivably pick up, that I could see happening, is Delpan. I think that would have been the absolute worst pick, because that would have been like Forrest and GetRight just thinking like, hey guys, remember a couple years ago we had that run where we won a couple tournaments and he was hitting shots, and I could totally actually see that happening again. It didn't happen, but this is like so far from the left field that I don't think you can even see that far. Like, how do you justify picking up Pipe?
Lurppis, here's the thing, okay? On DreamHack Stockholm desk, for some unknown reason, Anders revealed to the world that he thinks Pauf is some amazing talent. He even used some sort of term like he can play at a super elite level, which is like, Anders, you're giving me brain cancer. You know, this is my fucking language, you know, like, can you learn it before you start speaking? You know, it's quite rude to not know even what the words mean before you're saying them, you know, like, what do you think that means? 6 out of 10? Definitely not. So anyway, he said this crazy statement, but here's the thing, even Anders doesn't fucking bang on about Pyth. Even he gave up on Pyth, Pit, whatever you meant to say. Even he gave up on him, like the rest of us, a year and a half ago. The hype train sailed on that one.
I think it was when he killed himself on train with the Negev falling off a ladder.
And
that was probably when it all ended.
Something that I've always disliked about players is when they sort of quit for a while, they go inactive, they say, oh, I'm kind of, and Pyth actually did this too. He didn't just go inactive. He actually like posted a statement on Facebook saying, I'm kind of sick of the game. I need to step back a little bit. Like either you want to play or you don't. And obviously he's going to want to play while he's in NIP, but his motivation has already come and gone a couple times.
See, that makes it sound like, you remember that like cheesy old song that was actually by the guy, I forget his fucking name, that guy out of Linkin Park, where it was like 10% passion, 20% pain. Like for Pyth, his makeup is like, what makes me want to play CS is like 20% salary, 10% do I have good players, 30% when did I bomb the last LAN or whatever. Like, come on, mate, surely he's like the game as well. Oh yeah, the game a lot as well, sure. Is my nip jersey ready? Yeah, the game. I love the game. Okay.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is like, you either want to play or you don't. And I don't, like, unless you really want to play, I don't see how, like, going further than a couple months from now, while he's finally over the whole fact that he's in NIP and people in Sweden are saying, hey, man, out on the street to him, like, how is he still going to motivate himself?
No, dude. We know this is all about the long con, gentlemen.
Okay.
This is all about going deep. So Pyth, he's gone, you know, he's been out of the wilderness in Europe, hasn't been able to get anything working. Then he decided, you know what, I'm going to take that step. He goes across the pond into North America, hoping, you know, to be able to make something work with Devil Walk. That's all just experience. You know, he's figuring out, okay, this is what works for NA. Comes back, and now he thinks, what worked for Michaelele? Played with Nip for a bit, got cut, but then he went on to, you know, form a really top tier team, considered top 8 right now. There you go. That's the key. Nip aren't going to win anything, but maybe he can, you know, get that moment with NIP and then move on to make another international roster, something like that, that's going to go and kick ass and take names.
But by the way, that time when Pyth went to North America, that also in my head is a time where he basically quit and just went to vacation. I don't know where he lived in North America. I hope not.
He had like a team house in Toronto or something, I think.
Here's the problem with Pyth.
Okay, so he didn't even go on vacation. But I mean, like, he didn't go there to win. He didn't go there to compete. It was like a top 10 North American team where they struggled to make it out of groups at North American lands.
Like, it was DreamHack Stockholm, man. They didn't qualify for the major there. They bombed out of it.
Well, they lost all the maps on LAN or something. They lost every map on LAN.
I don't even know all the players they had playing, and they had Devil Walk. I mean, like, he's a nice guy, but come on. Like, Devil Walk cannot play Counter-Strike.
No, XP3 was at the end, mate.
No, but it was Lex, XP3, Pyth, Devil Walk, and
Nafly was on the team. Anger.
Yeah, Anger.
I think this is actually giving me brain cancer. Let's go back to NIP now. This isn't a dessert.
No, so here's the question. So Pyth is joining NIP. Here's the thing. Pyth in NA for me is like Shazam in Cloud9. Doesn't matter what Shazam does after the fact. Once I saw him in the scenario where he was supposed to have a chance to look really good and he looked terrible, that will be indelibly burned into my mind. So the problem for Pyth is NA was at its worst when he went there. If he was a really sick player, this is supposed to be when he goes simple mode and he just wrecks all these NA players and we all go, ha ha ha, aren't EU players better? He went there and didn't even look like a star player. It was embarrassing.
Yep.
Forget Devil Walk. I never had high expectations for Devil Walk. He wasn't an in-game leader. I don't know where that hype came from. And he was just an okay, serviceable support player. It's Pyth's the one who was the failure on that team for me because it's like, well, this is where mate, you're playing versus NA players. You're supposed to dominate these guys. Remember, these are the players who, some of these guys go to international lines and they can't perform. This is where when you play domestically in NA, you're supposed to body them, and then one day you get the call up to the big team, and you come back to Europe in glory. But what's mad is he didn't do well, yet he got the fucking call up because there's no one for Nip to sign at this point. So
isn't that it though? Isn't that it? It's just like NIP, like Fnatic. The Fnatic roster isn't changing, so there's nobody from Fnatic that they can pick up. You thought I think
NIP is now paying 150 grand for Gamers 2 players. Just no. I mean, Titan. Sorry, that was a bad move. That was not value for money. Okay, continue.
Well, Scream has got a pretty goddamn big brand though. I don't know. You might be able to debate that one. Okay.
Well, Schneider told me the other day he's a top 3 aimer in the world. So. Schneider actually told me.
I don't think that matters, really.
He literally said that. Schneider said his top 3 aimers in the world were Pyth, Flamey, and who was I just talking
Scream.
about there? Pyth, Flamey, and Scream was his top 3 aimers in the world.
He has Pyth as a top aimer?
Yep.
The crazy thing about being a really good aimer is apparently it either
doesn't translate to kills, right?
It doesn't translate to kills.
I know. Even though the head hitbox gives you the easiest kill. It actually gives you the best kill you can get because it's one bullet. You'd think the best aimers would be dominating.
I mean,
it's weird. I mean, I obviously know nothing about the game, Semmler, because I'm not a pro player.
Well, you don't play. I mean, what's your rank, Thorin? What's your rank?
lurppis was driven out, so he knows nothing. But call me weird. I've always thought the best aimers in the world were, sort of like Shocks, Forest, Olofmeister, Device. Apparently not. Oh, another thing, by the way. Apparently the best aimer in TSM was Cajun B. Wasn't even Device. So you learn something new every day. Here's what this will sound incredibly condescending and obnoxious, but that's what I do. So here's how I think someone like Schneider comes to that conclusion.
Can I go first?
Can you guess what it is?
I can tell you. Okay. It's the latest highlight clip that they
saw. No, it's worse than that, mate. What happened was
okay.
Schneider has played against TSM, and every time it's Cajun B who bangs his head off. So he's like, he is so sick with his aim. How the fuck is he so good? And that means I also know Flamey's getting in his ass. I know Pyth's just fucking him up with deagles. And basically, all I know now is how bad the games that Schneider's having against specific players. I don't know much about those players, actually, because I'm looking at the holistic aspect of the whole scene. How do you like that, Semmler? It's a good theory, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
You just got a window into Schneider's soul. Okay.
lurppis, what do you think adding Pyth actually does? Can it work?
I think, first of all, I don't really even know how the roles are going to work now.
He's not
the only boost that I can see from this is like the short-term added motivation of having a new player, and maybe they get like a tiny 5% boost from that. But guess what? NIP plus 5% is still not competing for titles.
No,
certainly.
I mean, I just honestly like what I really want is for someone from NIP to just do an interview where they explain their thinking process, where they explain like, we felt like we needed X to succeed. No. We found this player who has X, and we added him, and that makes us whole.
Well, so here's the thing, X is we need 5 players to compete in tournaments. We can't compete as 4, so we need a player.
Here's the thing. lurppis brings up a very valid point here, okay? Here's the thing. If I'm an idiot, I don't know anything about the game, my analysis has no basis, great. Let's have the guys everyone says are experts explain it to us. You will never see an interview, even in Swedish, by the way. Maybe English is a barrier. Let's have a translated interview in Swedish where, let's say about the last lineup. So it doesn't matter anymore. It's a new lineup now. Everything's going to change. Let's have an interview with Get Right and Exist where they explain in depth how the last lineup was going to work and how I was totally wrong and they were going to win all those tournaments that they never won a single fucking one with Alu. They were going to win all those tournaments. They were going to beat teams like Fnatic who weren't much better than them. That's just being a fanboy again. Let's explain in depth how they were going to do it and what went wrong. And you know what we'll get, even in Swedish, their native tongue? You'll get the same kind of fucking buzzword nonsense of like, well, we didn't have a lot of confidence and then we were trying to play this YOLO style and then, on this map, we did a bad, maybe we should have picked another map there and, online we were winning there, but we threw this particular round in a 1v3. You'll hear all the sort of low level, basically like the sort of shit that like a fucking, like a distinguished master guardian would tell you about why he's not in fucking Legendary Eagle. Like all the sort of bullshit that is not the real reason why. These people don't know what went wrong. That's why they're going to have a problem fixing it.
I'm actually really impressed that you need names of 2 different CS:GO ranks that are not global elite.
It's good, right?
Yeah, that was really good.
You know the sad thing, Lurppis? Let me just say this once and for all. Here's the sad part. I actually am not condescending towards fans in as much as I give fans too much credit. Like, one thing I never used to look up, right? Because I only found this out from League of Legends. This is why I looked it up in CSGO. In League of Legends, okay, their bottom rank is actually bronze. So they start at bronze and it goes up the metals and then it goes platinum, diamond, master, challenger, okay? So challenger is the equivalent of the global elite. Now, what I didn't know in League of Legends, because you've got so many ranks, you'd think logically, well, if there's like 5 or 6 ranks, the middle of where most people must be in the middle one, right? No. Most people in League of Legends, 90% of players are in the bottom 2 ranks. So 90% of players who are spouting off all their knowledge on Reddit know fuck all about the game and have no analytical basis to be experts. It's the same in CSGO. I didn't know this. I went and had a look, right, in CSGO, and the majority of people, it's only something like the top 3 to 4 ranks, Semmler, is something like ranks? There was someone did this like a year or 2 ago where they broke down the percentages of the ranks, okay? And
okay.
There was only something like 8% of people were in the top 3 or 4 ranks. In the whole world, 8%. So that means everyone watching the show now, like, you don't know anything about the game, is probably a fucking golden over. That's not a joke. And some of them, it's like, Lurppis, this will blow your mind. I meet girls and who are like girl streamers, and I meet people who are League of Legends pros who've played a bit of CSGO, and they go, yeah, I'm getting pretty good actually. I'm just onto that double AK, and I'm like, I'd kill yourself, mate. Like, that's not even vaguely good. Like when I actually first played CSGO and got my ranking matches, that was the lowest I ever went, was the double AK. When I first started the game and hadn't played the game for 2 years and just started, that was like, wow, I'm really bad at this game. Little did I know I was in the top like 15% of playing the whole fucking world. That's how bad the shitters watching this show right now, judging us, are. And here's the difference. They're going to go, now, wait a minute, you're a hypocrite. You just said that the whole point is you don't have to be a pro. No. I don't have to be a pro, but it's not the fact I'm not a pro that makes me an expert. I then am not a pro, but did something else with my time. Studied the fucking game, spent years watching it. You're not a pro and have done nothing. You are not anything. You have no qualifications for anything. You are literally a fucking empty chair. So talk like an empty chair, motherfucker.
I feel like
anyway, the rants on this show are going too far out. Yeah, I know, mate. It's unreal, isn't it?
You read a comment between now and then.
Yeah,
it's like just triggering you so hard.
Okay, I don't think I think the worry of Duncan using all of his rage before we went live was warranted. I don't think that was needed.
No. Wait, Lurppis, I'm going to trigger you. Because something I actually addressed in my recent Thorin versus Reddit, and I almost lost my shit on this one, was this fan theory. And here's the thing, Lurppis, my favourite ones in Thorin versus Reddit, obviously some of them I address because it's a point that I think is worth addressing, you know. Like if someone says something that I've seen many times, I'll address it, even if it was a downvoted comment. My favourites are utterly inane asinine comments that are super upvoted. So this comment, I forget off the top of my head, I think it was like 80 points, and then there was a reply that was like 50 points. Here was a real theory someone put forward, Lurppis. I'll read it to you because it's so good. You have to, when you hear this, remember that it was super upvoted, okay? Don't think, oh, well, that's just one person that doesn't represent everyone. No. More motherfuckers thought this was worth upvoting than worth downvoting. This was a real opinion given where when people found out that NIP had all these problems where they weren't getting paid enough or they weren't getting paid on time. So this was right after the major. Are you ready to have your fucking mind blown? Let me just do a keyword search for this. This is going to be... let me think. What
was it in your show? Was it in Thorin versus Reddit?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, then I know what
you're talking about. You know which one I'm going to talk about. You ready? Here we go, Lurppis. 89 points. There's 2 comments to read, so let me read both, okay? And then you can react. 89 points 1 month ago. So NIP has been underperforming as a protest to not getting paid. Showed their hand one time against TSM in a, if you treat us properly, look what we can do fashion, and then proceeded to throw the next game. A guy replies, 26 points. As daft as this might sound, it would explain why one of the best teams of all time suddenly became terrible. Let's be honest here. It makes far more sense than every other team in the world suddenly becoming amazing in the space of a month or 2. How you like that, Lurppis? That theory? Like that theory? Does it float with you?
I muted my mic because I was gonna ruin your reading.
It's good, right? It's good, right?
It's like I don't know.
Fans, mate.
Is it possible someone just bought 80 VPNs and created 80 new accounts and uploaded himself 80 times?
No. Lurppis, is a famous saying. Think about how dumb the average guy is. Well, mathematically, half of them are even stupider than him. That's what this comment proves.
Yep, that is very true. So
my favorite part about this is...
Well, I mean, in that case, it's fine, right? Because if NIP actually is still the world's best, maybe they're just doing this as a favor to Pyth, where they know they're actually the world's best, but they've been losing on purpose, and they know that as sort of like a friendly gesture, they can just completely rocket ship Pyth's career from the dungeons of losing in North America in group stages to being the best team in the world.
Guys, we've done this before. We've got 4 of the best players in the world. You can be the new Fifflerin. Let's go to the top, baby.
Michael, I'm just thinking back to Michael.
Mate, anyone who wants to talk shit on Makalele, which I know Makalele's very popular now, Makalele was a good player in NIP. He wasn't a star by any sense because he was very erratic, but he was an impact player. I find it very hard to believe Pyth's going to have the impact Makalele did, or Alu did, obviously.
Or Alu did, yeah, that's the thing. He's got
because the thing is, Alu was stable, Makalele was erratic but powerful. What does Pyth have? Put it this way, it doesn't even make sense in terms of the roles. So those were 2 fucking AWPers. What's Pyth going to do? AWP? I mean, he tried to an orbit. It wasn't great, I'll tell you that.
They're going back to old style, and just no op unless somebody else. I guess Fifth Lauren, like the Fifth Lauren role is going to be Forrest's role now. We need an op for this position. Okay, Forrest, go.
You want to know my Semmler, you're triggering me all over the place here. Do you want to know my favorite? Do you want to know my favorite complaint?
Just go like poof when I put
you're gonna like this
Forrest
one.
in the same sentence as that.
You're gonna like this one, Semmler. My favorite complaint from NIP players, where I really am just like, cry me a fucking river and get over it, bitch. I'm talking about 2 NIP players, is this. NIP players were the biggest whiners about the 4-spy era of OP pistols. And the reason why they were the biggest whiners is because they were never good at 4-spies. Now, the new NIP's not that bad, the one that was at the last tournament, Fragbite. But in general, they were never good at 4-spies. Here's the problem, Semmler. Either you're good at 4-spies because you have the skill and you can adapt to that kind of skill-based style. So NIP wasn't good. So they're saying they don't actually have enough skill to compete there. So if you're not good at 4-spies, you better be amazing at proper buys with strats. No. NIP didn't have strats either. They had nothing. They were just in some fucked up middle ground where they were sort of okay at either, and then that's about it. And guess what? That'll get you 6th or 7th place in the world. It won't make you a top 3 team. So what's the complaint about? If you're not good at that, go learn some fucking strats, bitch. Imagine if Very Games had done the same thing back in the day. Oh, this is bullshit. We have really good tactics, but this NIP team just wins by doing base strats all the time. Everyone would be like, suck it up, bitch. This is the game the game's played. Learn to play. Stop crying.
It certainly is that way
But
now.
I tell you what, for 2015, Freiburg's like plus 380 and crying. Every time he was called upon, he delivered.
I wasn't expecting that.
There we go. I always bring it back, mate. I always bring it back.
Well played.
Okay. So anyway, NIP, what do you think of Pyth addition to NIP, Semmler? I know you might listen, Semmler. You're like one of those fucked up Jedi type characters in Star Wars. You're like, there's good in him. I can sense it. Come on, I know deep down you want to believe it can work. Something good can come of this, right?
No, I'm old and jaded now. I've started to go over towards the better side, the dark side. I'm going to join you.
Okay. I've already started to bring Anders over, and he was like a pillar of the fucking light side.
He was a pillar of the Jedi.
He believed
side.
in everyone, didn't he?
But yeah, no. It's just when you the one. Okay, if you're looking for positives, I'd heard talk that Pyth was struggling on Winter Fox because of the language barrier, because he wasn't feeling comfortable having to try and communicate in English, right? As quickly, right? So that might have had an impact on his game. How big? But might have had an impact on his game. So one positive thing here is that he's going to be back on a Swedish roster now. He's going to be playing with players that he's probably looked up to for ever, right? So now he's going to be playing with those players.
By the way, let me just give Pyth some credit on that.
Okay.
I'll give him an allowance for that. It is true the language barrier could help, but here's a weird thing. I think the language barrier in NA hurts, not because you don't understand what they're saying, but because they never shut the fuck up. So I imagine Pyth. Pyth was in the game, and he's trying to aim on an angle, and he's trying to think it's an edge, and then he just hears people like beep 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 beep. He's lit, dude. Fuck, I domed him. What the fuck? Why? How did he get me that guy? That's bullshit. I was through a wall. He's like, I'm trying to fucking play here. I'm trying to listen to the footsteps. What is this? That's what it's like on an NA team. You've seen FPL, Semmler.
That's exactly how it is, dude. That's exactly. If you listen
Every
to
time I
CLG.
talk to Fifth Lauren, he's losing his shit when he plays those games. Motherfuckers, it's like, you know that joke? Someone made a screenshot where it was like call-outs, and then there's that area on the map where it just says, dude, I'm lit, when it's from like Catwalk and Dust 2. It's the idea that's their call-out. It's not even a spot. It's like, shit, I'm lit. How did you get me through? He's hacking. He's through a wall. Like, that's an A. That's a spot on the map. You have to learn to translate that like a pygmy language. And actually, like, ooh, that means he wants the wooden balls now. Here we go. That's an NA. I've learned to talk to we're like Jane Goodall learning to talk to the fucking apes with sign language or something. That's what Pyth was like in NA. Okay.
Okay.
Back on track. Python nip, yeah.
Yeah, Python nip.
Yeah,
well, we've just got into the language barrier.
Great pickup. Yeah, I mean, is there anything more to be said, really?
I'll be honest, lurppis.
He has a rifle. If he's a top 3 aimer, according to Schneider, I mean...
You guys can't see the light. See, what you didn't know is the whole time...
I thought the idea was to go to the dark, but okay.
Similar. I'm like Vader. The whole time inside me, it was a battle between the light and the dark, and all I needed was the right person to draw it out of me.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So NIP has saved me. They've brought it out of me. Like, it's the end of Return of the Jedi, okay? So here's what's going to happen, Semmler. I actually am really looking forward to this move. I think it's great. I think it's awesome that Nip has added Pyth. I really hope that he's got a full year contract. I hope that they honour that contract. I hope that they're honourable enough to only play with Pyth and never make a change, no matter how obviously wrong it is. I hope that they play together for 4 to 5 years. I think this is the move that Nip fans deserve. This is the karma that they've reaped. They had all those years of the 87-0, the titles. I think this next year, I really want to see them play with Pyth. It's a bit like I used to tell lurppis, okay, when Khan did make those moves, where he let Forrest and Get Right just walk to SK Gaming and make the best team. What he did is he made like a half-assed roster, okay? And amazingly, it actually fluked the first tournament. But this roster would have never been able to be top 3. And sadly, even they bailed one by one on the roster like 6 to 7 months in. But I was saying, you probably remember this, Lurppis, when they were really bombing, like at Copenhagen Games, they didn't even get out of the group stage, or they finished like round of 8 or something terrible. I even said to Lurppis, you know what, I really hope they keep this roster. I hope they lock into this motherfucker for a whole year, and at the end of the year, I want to go up to Khan and go, great job, mate. The way you build rosters, there's something about your mind, the way it works. Like, you just know something more than the rest of us, you know. I mean, you put your faith in the right people. It's all about team spirit, right? It's all about how you relate socially. That's what wins you games, right? Meanwhile, over on SK, you know, those trophies. Ignore the trophies, mate. All that glitters is not gold, Khan. But this is what I want to happen with NIP. If they really believe there was no problems, and if they're fans, by the way, Nip fans do not give up. I'll give Nip fans this one thing, okay?
They get the Nip logo tattooed on their arms, man.
Here's the thing. Normal people, forget it, not even people, even animals learn by trial and error. If you send a rat down a maze and it keeps getting electrocuted when it goes left, it will start going right. A Nip fan will just keep going, I'm not being electrocuted. I didn't used to get electrocuted. This is fine. I'm absolutely fine with this. This is bullshit. Electricity shouldn't even exist. And also, why are we in a maze? That's what a Nip fan will say, okay? So here's the thing about Nip fans, Semmler. Nip fans don't give up. I saw people replying to Lurppis when he cited factual stats about the drop-off of Freiburg.
Sure.
And even better, you can look at Freiburg's drop-off over the years. So you can see he goes from like positive to a bit negative to really negative. So as he cited stats, people would say, yeah, but that was just 2014 and 2015. I mean, in 2012 and 2013, he was really good. Maybe he can just regain that form. Think about that. What player else in CSGO are you allowed to say, oh, so all the people who think existence sucks a dick now? Well, I mean, he was the best in-game leader by far in 2013 and 2012, guys. Don't worry about him. I mean, forget the last 2 years. Maybe he'll just pick up his whole form again for no reason. Because you want him to, and because you don't learn. So I want Nip fans to keep getting electrocuted until they either learn and go right in the maze and follow the right team, see what I did there, Semmler, or they get electrocuted to death. One of the two. Well, it's a metaphor, by the way, guys. I don't really want death for anyone. Because I actually, like I said, I want them to live. Their punishment must be more severe, Semmler. They must live and see Nip wallow in the mire of the next 2 to 3 years. And I hope the next player they get is fucking Pauf. I hope next up, Forrest retires and they get Pauf to replace him. And then, who else can I insult them with? Who else is bad? Let me see who else. Oh, here's something to talk about. Lurppis. What if I told you, rumour is, Twist has turned down Nip for a 3rd fucking time? What is wrong with this guy? Is he aware that there's a professional... Does he think it's 2012? Well, I mean, the big teams, you know, there's not very many lands and stuff. I wouldn't make a lot of money. I'll just play with my friends. You know how overrated friends are. That's a whole other rant. Okay, what do you think of this,
I was about to say, like-
Twist turning down Nip again, if it indeed happened?
Okay, so what would you say if someone came out with like relatively decent proof that the Finnish guy Joels, who just like beats everybody online, was actually
God.
Twist? Isn't he basically the same guy with just a Swedish passport?
I mean, he has been to some lands.
No, he's actually good at those lands. Joels
Yeah.
went to a Finnish land too. He played decent. That was
I just
one
don't-
land though.
I just don't get it. Here's the thing, though. That's okay. You've actually nailed it there. Because here's the thing with Yoles, it's not just that people thought he was an onliner. It's that everyone who's got to know him says he's like some weirdo and there's something off about him. Okay, that's the weird thing. There is nothing surrounding Twist to this day of like a moddy or a simple vibe of like he's toxic or that he's just like he has a bad mentality. Everyone actually wants to play with him. It seems everyone thinks he's. In fact, every other player I ask, it's like no, he is a good player. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten a bad. No one currently knows really the reason why he doesn't take any of these offers.
I think he has to be something like there was that old Finnish Warcraft 3 player like way back when who was like super scared of flying and wouldn't go to tournaments. I think
okay,
Twist has only been to like Swedish tournaments and like Copenhagen games. I'm not.
No,
like,
he went to DreamHack London as well. He was on Copenhagen Wolves there.
Oh yeah, true. But okay, like I feel like there has to be something like that where like he's just super scared of traveling or something. Like there's gonna be some reason. Because otherwise, why do you play? If you don't want to go to tournaments and make tons of money, why do you play?
What do you think, Semmler?
As to why he wouldn't have joined?
Or the fact he didn't join and anything like that?
I wonder if all of this stuff that Richard was uncovering about the org and about the money and about the players being mistreated, etc. If that wasn't the reason why he wouldn't want to join or why anybody would want to join NIP.
Dude, you know how much money Twist probably made in his Counter-Strike career up until today? Probably like I bet that money he won from FPL, it said somewhere that he won 4.5k. I think that's the most he's ever made.
He's ever won.
So
No, he
let's
got
say
something from London.
so let's say NIP pays like 1/3 of the money they make. I'm pretty sure everybody on that team makes 200 grand a year. So already Twist is up like 50 grand.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No. I mean, I can't think of like that. Obviously, this is a personal thing with him.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single reason as to why you wouldn't join, even if it was to just get 5th, 6th for the entire year, if not a top 4 here and there, right? It's a clear upgrade from anything that he's had to go off of for quite some time, ever since he was on LGB. So I mean,
That's the sad thing,
I'm
though,
not
as well,
sure.
isn't it? Like no one has a reason as to why they wouldn't want him. Like, I put it this way. Okay, other moves you can see coming, etc., and you can debate them. Like, I'm debating whether Dennis was even that great a pickup for Fnatic. I can't see any downside to Twist join, as in for the team. I think it would be a great pickup. Of the people available, that's like the best you can get.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
he's a very versatile player. He's very skilled. He could definitely be a good player for that team.
it's got to be entirely like it's something. that's
And
just
considering, I mean, he's basically played for like semi-puggish Swedish teams all of his career, so he would actually, you would think, fit in pretty well with like a loose calling style on an IP.
Yep. That's why, if you look back in history, the area that NIP will always be haunted by was the fact that their decline started just as LGB were all available. And here's the thing, that would have been the perfect team to take, not just for the players, because it was the same style of fucking play. The difference is Fnatic was always trying to go the Pronax route and do the tactic. So what happens is, no joke, all the players they could have recruited in the scene back then who were all on the down, like Fnatic was falling off, the LGB guys had no org, all of those players since then have massively superseded NIP. So if they'd have gotten Fnatic players, they could have gotten Flusher and JW at that point in time. They would have almost certainly said yes. They could have had Olofmeister. I won't say Crims because admittedly none of us knew he was that good, so no one could pick him up. But they could have had Dennis, they could have had Olofmeister. And okay, maybe these moves wouldn't all work, we don't know, but they would definitely be worth the gamble we now know in hindsight, would be worth at least trying. And here's the thing, I never blame NIP really for the 2014 shit, because they still won enough and in every few months that there was a reason to keep it together. Like, well, we aren't technically a losing team, like we do still win. Now, I could make the case maybe they would have won more tournaments in 2014. You can maybe make that argument. So 2014 I usually give them a pass on. My problem is, from 2014 onwards, they should have been going hard at people like Dennis. Hell, if they were going to get someone like Allo eventually, why not be going for a Rain? Why not be going for these sorts of players, They should have been making those moves and they never looked at them.
Well, isn't that in an interview that just came up where, like, when Dennis came on to Fnatic, that apparently Dennis had said when he retired that the only team he would come back for was NIP. Like NIP could have had that. Could have had Dennis. You
think
could be sure that they would
certainty.
Yeah. You could be sure that they would have heard of that. So I mean, yeah, they could have definitely had it. I mean, I think you talk to any of the pros right now, and they'll all say they held on to fifth too long. They didn't make a roster change when they needed to, when the chance was there, and then they got stubborn, and even now they only changed the one. When Fnatic to get their revamp, to get everything going again, they changed two. Envy, they changed two. It's like, should there be a change of two on NIP, not just one? Because
I've always said
that's where I'm wondering about the whole NIP thing as well. It's just like, okay, you've changed one. Like it's always been one on the team. But it clearly doesn't change enough of the core of the team, or at least how you approach the game for you guys to have that championship winning team again.
Think of the implication. So the implication, even if they don't say it, is the rest of the team's fine. We just need to change the one guy.
Sure.
Yet here's the thing. Okay, in Fifth Lion's case, at the time that was true. That was the most obvious change. The problem is, in terms of Makalele and now Alu, these never were the people you needed to change.
Yeah.
Alu, definitely not. Me. Here's one of the things, okay? The only map...
if you want to be true dark side, if you really want to go to the fucking dark side on this, you just say, well, there's no reason for them to change because they are clearly the biggest brand in CSGO, if not, one of the biggest brands in esports, pretty much flat out. If you kill that roster, NIP have nothing, and they're killing the golden goose.
So that's what I don't get, Semmler. But
then you hold on. If you can keep always giving your fans a hope, a chance, like that there's a chance that you're going to win this tournament. You can keep building up that fan base to the point where it's just like these players, they never need to change the team. They can actually literally just go off of merch sales and sticker money and shit like that. Never win a tournament again, but live like kings.
Let's go dark side, okay?
That's dark side, though.
You want to have all that in place. You ready?
Sure.
Keep Get Right and Forest, kick all the rest. Like 1% of fans who are Freiburg and Exist fans leave. More people maybe join when you then start winning, and you still got Get Right and Forest, who's the face of the team. I don't think that would kill you. If you keep Get Right and Forest, that is NIP, mate.
Yeah, Freiburg as well, man. Freiburg don't
get real, mate.
Don't knock Freiburg's fan base.
So if you keep Get Right and Forest, all of the Freiburg fans are going to go, fuck NIP, I'm going to support. Oh wait, I've always spent my whole life talking shit on Fnatic, and I hate French people because of their arrogance. And Danes are all chokers. I guess I'm now a Cloud9 fan. Like, where are they going to go? They've got NIP fans are like officer and gentleman. They've got nowhere else to go, Semmler.
Sure. And by the way, they already have tattoos.
Game on point.
It's a process.
Yeah, exactly, they've got tattoos.
The branding, right? Branding.
Exactly.
Also, something that I was going to add before we got carried away here, at least a little bit, is that you actually, like at this point in Counter-Strike, it's almost better to take a risk and make a change, because the other point is that player you're thinking about signs with another team, all of a sudden it costs you like 100 grand to buy out his contract that he's basically gone forever. I mean, you're basically at a point where always in the past when Forrest wanted to pick someone up, he just called them or messaged them on Steam like, yo, kind of want to play with you. You want to join? And that's basically it. The orgs, I mean, in Gux's case, they don't even pay each other. Sometimes they pay each other a couple grand. They're like, all right, sweet, it's done. But now, who's to say Makalele didn't want to go back in NIP? Or like they weren't like, oh, remember we won that tournament in Finland with him. But like you can't because he costs too much.
Yeah, that's also why that 2014 will haunt them, because they could have gotten Olaf Meister and Dennis for free. I'm going to go ahead and guess if like, here's the thing, there's actually skeptical reasons behind the scenes why it might have been a lie about how much the Scream signing was from Titan from both sides, but let's imagine it wasn't. If Scream is 150,000, I'm sorry, Olaf Meister must be $300,000. Like, so you don't even have the choice to buy him. Even if he said, I'd really love to go to NIP, unless Fnatic then agrees, let's do it at half price, he's not going. You can't. In fact, here's the thing: for NIP, it's not even worth $300,000. You'd actually be better off gambling on someone else and hoping they just turn out to be good, because it's going to be way cheaper. That's why I'll give you an example. Okay, right now, the reason why for this Turner League, a lot of NA orgs are going to get NA lineups, which me and you look at and go, well, that team's shit. They're never going to do anything. Is because that team is almost free now. That is going to cost them next to nothing, and they're gambling it's at least decent. To buy Na'Vi or buy some other team would cost like $500,000. So that's actually, it wouldn't even be worth it, even though you would get a better team, if you know what I mean. Like the return on return on investment would be actually quite low. So that era is kind of past, unfortunately, where you can just buy the player you want.
As soon as you said Olaf Meister must cost like 300 grand, the way Semmler just like jumped up on his chair looked like exactly like, well, actually, let me check. Where he's like, loads up the contract, and then like 10 seconds later, his face goes like, I mean, I don't have a camera, but his face goes like, whoa, and it's like it actually seemed as if he was like, oh, let me actually check how much you. Oh, $1 million? What? Like that's what he actually looked like on the camera.
I'm comparing right now Scream and Olaf Meister's following, like social media following, right? Scream has actually got more followers than Olaf on Twitter.
Yeah, and Scream was only a top player for a year and a half.
He's not got as many as him on Facebook, but he's only like 5K short. They're all well above 100K, by the way. I want to check real quick who what is Get Right at right now?
His is going to be massive because he was already big in the early days.
Yeah, he's got 164 now, so he's doing really fucking good. But that's crazy, actually. The fact that like Scream has done such a huge, like he's now got a mouse that he endorses as well. Like he's got his own brand, like his own merchandise, like a mouse that he's endorsing. Like that's You know what? His brand is massive, dude. It's fucking huge. If he's got this many, like how many does he have on Instagram as well?
Scream is an example of someone, right, where they need a manager badly, an individual manager. Because here's the thing. If I'm the manager of Scream, I know we're not going to get all of our fame from going to LANs and doing Super Sick. So I'm literally going to have a team of movie makers recording everything I do on stream, every single official game I played, and every week we're going to have like the week's highlights and we're going to have a new frag movie. Because that's exactly how you're going to blow that brand up. Because you're going to have sick clips in the frags, aren't you? But that's actually the sort of thing where he doesn't do any of that stuff and just lets other people make the movies. So that's a weird thing where, like, let's say you pay the guy $200 a week. That would pay for itself, mate.
He's got 63K followers on Instagram as well, which is what sponsors are more interested in now instead of...
To be fair, his highlights on Instagram are pretty exceptional. They always have... If there's one way, he's always been money on the camera, mate.
Does Olaf Meister have one? No.
Probably not.
Yeah, okay, he's got one. 26K. But like, this is so fucking important as well. It's just like you've got a guy who wins tournaments and is basically the player of the year. And then you've got somebody, you know.
I mean, obviously the Game Awards wouldn't say so, Semmler. But do you want to know? I'm going to reveal it right now. I don't give a fuck, Semmler. Here's an area where shit gets fucked up. So when they wanted to do those Game Awards, they obviously knew fuck all about esports. So they actually contacted people like me, Richard, a couple of other people in the industry, and just said to us, please send us your nominees for who should be the Player of the Year, all this sort of thing. So for Player of the Year, obviously it's covering all games as well. So I picked him out, and I was telling Richard, like, well, obviously Faker, and then I was, like Sumail from Dota 2, right. Olaf Meister. Problem is, though, we only got to like 4 names or something, and I was like, we probably should put another. I said to him, well, to be fair, if they asked for 5 names, what you usually do on nominations is you pick someone who like could be a candidate but wouldn't win. Mm-hmm. So I said, I guess just to fill it out, put Kenny S, because he was the best at the beginning of the year. So of course they fucking give Kenny S the award for best player of 2015. Great. I should have just said something else, shouldn't I?
Bro, he drops 50 frags on LAN, you know?
I should have put fucking Adren in there or something.
You really wanted to break the system? Yeah.
Why not? Melt the internet. Okay, back on topic. Next team, XTSM. So Semmler, when we bitch and complain about Envious' style of play, risky style of play, Fnatic going down this super risky style of play where it's largely predicated on skill, TSM is supposed to be the one team that has it all. They have the skilled lineup. They have the real in-game leader with the history and who knows how to anti-strat and knows how to map veto. They have the wide map pool. They have all the roles set out really well defined. How is TSM not the best team?
It's all... I don't know. There's no explanation apart from the fact that they can't seem to get their heads in the game or they defeat themselves. And yet they did it. Is it that simple? lurppis, does this make any sense to you? Because to me, it's like they have everything. They should be winning, and then it's because they have that they don't know how to deal with that pressure. I guess of you're the favorite. You are the team to beat. This is your tournament. It's in the bag already. You got it. Here's the check. And all you got to do is beat these other teams that you should beat any day of the week, right? And yet they somehow managed to lose it.
The craziest thing is, first of all, they already got over the hump. Like that should have been it.
Right.
And second of all, it's not really Device anymore. Like Device brings it. He plays well. Like I think
he was really good in the series they lost in the semifinals to Fnatic at ESL ESEA.
Yeah, exactly. It's not Device anymore.
He had 49 frags over 2 maps, and they lost the series.
To me, it's Cajun more than anything.
I really think this whole year Cajun has been better than Dupree. And
you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but the thing is, Cajun was better earlier, but Dupree, when they became like really sick before the major, was really going hard. Yeah, like the PGL time, and he was getting good performances then.
I feel like for the past few months, I haven't really seen like a dominant series from Cajun. Maybe a map where he shows up every now and again, but I haven't really like I don't feel like I've seen any kind of like real standout performance where it's just like actually throughout this entire playoff series, Cajun B has been just rocking face. I haven't. You know who comes to mind when I think now TSM? It's not Device. It's not Dupree. It's Zipnix. Like that guy's a monster. Just clutch.
No,
he seems to do everything.
He's a really good role player. He's not a monster. I think the thing about Cajun B is he's consistently good, which is actually underrated. If you're consistently a good player, I think that's actually really valuable, especially for a team like TSM. Whereas I think Dupree is way more up and down. He's the kind of guy who might run in first, get 3 headshots. He'll be the highlight clip of the week. Or he might just be what he did with Device for like a year or two when they got blown out of all the semis.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if he still suffers from that, but like, really dependent on a strong start, on just having a really strong start on the server. There's like there was this old joke between him and I where I would tell him, did you unbind your ski board? Did you unbind your scoreboard? Because that's something that he would do is if you stood behind him and watched him for a few maps, he just constantly spams the scoreboard, right? Constantly looking at the scoreboard. Where am I? Like, how are we doing? And that was the joke where I was just like, you know what? Just play the goddamn game. Do your job, have fun. Don't even look at the scoreboard. Ask the guy sitting next to you if you need to know the money. Like,
the thing is, here's the thing. I normally always say when I'm doing my analysis, like, guys, don't put too much into one result. You got to look at how someone's playing over a few months. And, if someone has one bad map, you don't take that as bad. Here's the problem. Players are the ones who themselves buy into that shit. And so, literally, from talking to the TSM players behind the scenes, they have almost like PTSD because of what happened to them at the major. Like that like has traumatized and scarred them so much. It's changed their whole map pool. It's changed how they're playing. The worst part about it is, if I actually think in CSGO history, I think that is the most embarrassing series loss ever. TSM losing to NiP in the round of 8 on 2 of TSM's best maps and one map that NiP didn't even play. And not only losing, getting wrecked completely. So you came into the tournament, and at worst, you were supposed to be one of the 2 favourites to win the tournament. You don't even make it to the semis, and you lose to the team that at that point in time has barely won any series for the last 4 to 5 months. Yeah. And they wreck you completely. They wreck you, and you play like dog shit. All of that combined is like fucking Vietnam for TSM. And as soon as that gets triggered and they have that flashback, they're just wrecked. They don't come back from that.
And What's kind of crazy too is I actually ran through tons of stats today for sort of like a dump article where I just put in tons and tons of stats that people can just use whichever way they want. Sure. Something I noticed is Zipnix and Kerrigan actually were the 2 players that played the best out of anybody who attended the majors this year compared to their average above players who played a reasonable amount of maps. So they're the players who elevated their level of play the most at majors, which obviously tells you who didn't.
Yeah, which is also a reason why, to me, Cajun at least stands out. Like, where was Cajun on that? Because to me, Cajun stands out as a player right now who hasn't really stepped up for them in the big games. Unlike Device, apart from that fluke that he had recently, what was it, DreamHack, where he had his worst performance.
Face it, season 3, yeah.
Yeah, where he had his worst performance in a long time. But that's why I kind of just point the finger at Cajun for me as the player that is just he still feels really wishy-washy, at least in recent times, at least in recent memory.
I mean, here's the thing about Device. Device had obviously, as TSM as a team got it together and fixed it, part of it was Device fixing it. You could see as he became a better and more well-rounded player. Then going into the major, he had this insane consistency where even if they lost, he would get his frags, he'd still have his performance, and it was never on him as to why they lost. But then it was sick. Basically he had 2 tournaments after the major. There was Face It and Fragbite, and those 2 tournaments, there was some crazy bad performance there. Because at Face It, when they were in that series against Luminosity, he was something insane. In fact, I'll look it up for you. Let me have a look here. Okay, so they played 3 maps against Luminosity, and if you remember, they lost the 3rd map, Inferno, one of the best TSM maps, in overtime. And for the whole series, Device went -16. That can't happen when you're the superstar player. Minus 16 for the series. He's a superstar. Remember, if a superstar's a bad series, he's like a 0, -1, you know. Minus 16. That's really bad. And then at the Fragbite one was where against SK on cash he went 2-17 in a game. That's scary shit. But I will say, like I said, at ESL, ESEA, he was like back to the device before the major. Suddenly he was really good even when they lost or when they had close games. He was back to being... So I think the device thing can fix itself. I am still concerned that for some reason it's happening at majors. Like in general, it was only really Cologne where he had like a good major himself. Aside from that, he's obviously having this issue at the major. But yeah, it can't be just device. That's the point. There's other discontent in the team. And like I say, part of it for me, again, comes down to maps. Somehow that train game and that series just spooked them. Like after that, lurppis, we talked to Harrigan at Face It season 3 behind the scenes, you know, and he was just saying to us like, yeah, I want to play train, but they won't. In fact, they even told us we'd rather play cobblestone, which is our permaban, than play train. That's why in the IEM San Jose final they let Navi take cobblestone, which is like suicide when you're not even good at the map.
Incredibly dumb.
And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Your boy Cajun B came in, and so as I usually do, here's the thing. Here's a service I provide to the community, Semmler, that people won't know about.
Okay.
When in-game leaders tell me stuff, but it's problems and they're having difficulties getting the communication through to their player, rather than them have to bring it up, I'll sometimes just go to the player and playfully shit talk him using that info to kind of get the message across. Like, listen, people see this. You know, there's a problem here. This has to be fixed. So when Cajun B came in at the same tournament, I just said, Cajun, are you guys retarded or something? Do you like getting spanked on cobblestone? Do you like getting your head smashed in? Are you aware what Twain is? And he was going, no, bro, listen, like, I don't want to... I can't do the accent. He was going like, no, I'd rather play cobblestone than train. I was like, you'd rather get wrecked on cobblestone then. What basis do you have to play that? You know, it doesn't make any sense. And so at the moment, it feels like the TSM has abandoned both aspects. They feel like train's a weakness. They have started to gradually bring it back in more, you notice. But even Dust 2, that was their best map. But because they had those couple of key losses, they got spooked on Dust 2. They don't play Dust 2 now. In fact, let me have a look. Let me see. Okay, it's been over 20 offline maps since they played a game of Dust 2. That's insane. They used to get it all the time. Now, the map that they're trying to make their best map is Mirage. They're playing Mirage all the time. And here's the thing, that can work for them. They can be very good on Mirage. I agree. That could be a good map for them. My only issue there is that they have got scared of Train and they've taken Dust 2 out. Like, I get it. Like, Dust 2 is a hard map to have as your best map, but it was like one of the foundations of how good they were as a team, I thought. So I think just in terms of map pool, they're a mess still. They still got something to figure out there. Like, right now, they just play Inferno Mirage all the time.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do, at least. I mean, Inferno's a solid shot for them as well.
I even thought that TSM was pretty good on Train when they still played it.
They were excellent on it.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're just
also, of all the games, here's the thing, of all the games that happen to you, I understand if you play a game and it's like the other team plays incredibly, but they've got new strats and you figure out something didn't work for you. But if you remember the Train game at the Major, 2 things happened in that game. 1, NiP were insanely overperforming. Forget Forest, forget Get Right. Do you remember Exist and Freiburg just running out of the outside train yard, just one bulleting people in the head from 40 yards away, then one bullet in the neck? That doesn't happen. That wasn't some conspiracy theory where it turns out Freiburg's actually the best player ever, but was like, give me my money, motherfucker. I'll give you a little taste of the drugs. You want some of this crack?
What?
You like this crack? Good shit in it. Now that's all you get though, boy. You come back here with my money and I give you more crack. Like, he wasn't doing that. He's just a bad player who had one good game. But on top of that, TSM was uber bad. So you would think they'd see a balance here. Okay, well, that's not likely going to happen from NiP again, and we can obviously play better. No, they really were just like, no, we're just bad on Train. It's like, oh, well, that's solved that then, hasn't it?
No, I was just looking through the last time we saw them play on Train. That was ESL ESEA, wasn't it, versus Navi. But then what I remember from that map was just that it wasn't like TSM as a whole playing well. It was Zipnix just going completely apeshit and wrecking Navi. Yeah. Like, individual performance from Zipnix is what did it there, so...
That was the one where Zipnix carried the first part and then Device came on late.
Zipnix, I just remember like it being the Zipnix show. And then Inferno too, Zipnix played like really well.
And by the way, think about that. If you can beat Navi on Train, okay, Navi aren't the best Train team, but right. For me they're like the gatekeeper. If you can beat Navi on Train, you can do shit on Train. That's a big map. They're very good on that one. So, come on, man. If you can beat them on that, obviously you can be a great team.
No doubt. I mean, Navi are still one of the more solid teams on Train, are they not?
Certainly. here's the thing, okay, about the ex-TSM team. I've made this point before. So, because everyone despises TSM for some unknown reason, mainly because they're NIP fans, and because everyone wants to believe that Device is shit because he's not Olofmeister, everyone tries to make it like, yeah, TSM aren't even that good. Mate, their version of a slump is always finish top 4 and still make occasional finals, and still play well and lose. I'd love it if that was my slump. NIP fans, is that what your slump was like? Do you remember that period? Remember that period in the middle of the year where you had one best of 3 win over a 3-month span? It was against fucking Dignitas. Yeah, I'd probably shut the fuck up if I were you. Take a seat and maybe get that compass out and carve pray for nip into your arm, motherfucker, because you need fucking prayer. Bon Jovi. Anyway, keep going. Anyway, Lurppis, do you want to come in on this? What do you think about TSM now? Is TSM going to fix it, do you think? Do you think they figure it out?
Yeah.
They make a roster move? What do you think?
No, I don't think they're going to make a move. I think they're going to be one of the teams that's going to get better over the break, and that's going to look a lot better when they start. I guess DreamHack Leipzig is the next one, right?
You've got there's
before that?
They're not going to do the CES event. Then there's Star Series
What about
in Leipzig.
Starlander?
Yeah, there's Star Series. Are they into Star Series?
Oh,
Let's have a look.
Events upcoming.
They played Envy for the spot, but did they win?
I think
Yes,
they did. I remember NBK tweeting that they didn't make it, so they will be there.
So then that'll be it. I think TSM will be better next year. Like as we start, I think the break will do them some good, and I think they'll be better off. Who else? Let's see. Who else is going to be at that event?
That tournament participants are Fnatic, G2, Na'Vi, Titan, XTSM, Luminosity, and then Method and CyberZen.
Dude, that is going to be a fucking bitchin' tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, except for those last 2 names, you mean Semmler.
Hardy har.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Semmler. Was I bringing your buzz down there on the parade for Method? Were you really looking forward to seeing Method play with you?
No, I don't think that they matter at all. It's just that...
Mate, if you want to see Method play, you're smoking Crystal Method. 2000s reference to Frag movies there. Reference game incredibly on point. Anyway, so the only thing I'm looking forward to is CyberZen.
Asia, man. CyberZen.
Savage, mate. That's all I want to see.
Savage is going to be it, yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice if he'd stop throwing games, obviously, online and cheating and getting skins, but let's forget about that because he's not from America, so it's allowed to do that sort of thing in Poland, in France, in China. It's allowed to do that sort of theft from fans. Right, guys? My biceps? My friends? Yeah. Is it okay for me to throw this game, my friends? You like these biceps? Listen, I need to feed my family. What you feed him at this point in time? Fucking spaghetti made out of like gold ropes. You fucking rich as fuck, mate. Mortar 2K gave you like 20k. Well, you feeding him diamonds. They're eating muesli made out of diamonds instead of raisins. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring it back, guys. Bring it back. So that's the end of the TSM segment, but that does lead into the next team we obviously have to talk about, Virtus.pro.
Yep.
Here's the thing I love about Virtus.pro. Here's the thing. It does seem impossible that it can last forever, that you can just keep the same fucking lineup and never become legitimately bad and always get back to like 3rd or 4th best in the world. That does seem impossible, but they've done it and it's beautiful. Because here's the thing about Virtus.pro. They always do this exact same cycle. Yeah, they have a tournament or 2 that aren't that good. Then they have the tournament where it's really hot and it works out. They either win or they come top 2. And they will never be the best team. They will never be the number 1 team. But when they're on, they will always be the number 3 or 4 team. But unlike some 3 or 4 teams, they will always be capable of beating the number 1 team. That's what's different about them. They'll always be like they can't be an underdog because they're so good. But they'll always be like the most dangerous outsider for the best team. And that's why I always say, think of CSGO history. If you want to have a great series, a best of 3, the first team you pick is Virtus.pro. Then you can pick the other one. Put in NIP, put in Na'Vi, put in Fnatic, put in Envious, put in TSM. It's always Virtus.pro because they bring the series, you know.
Yep. I mean, like you said earlier, they're not going to be making changes. I still think that their team actually has a lot of untapped potential in the sense that Bialy and Pasha both had kind of rocky years. I don't think either had many like big standout tournaments, and that's usually when they actually just plowed through everyone. Obviously, Neo got a lot better this year. Taz is basically their role player now. He does what's needed. Stax is a super good player. So then I think they basically come down to how Pasha and Bialy play.
The thing is, when they made that change for the CEVO Season 7 finals, where they brought Neo over to the AWP and they made Pasha be a rifler, what's funny is at that tournament, it was Neo who improved. He was like the MVP. After that, his AWPing just became average. It's actually Pasha who I think improved from that change the most, because after that, he did have like crazy maps, so he'd have like 35 kills and big performances. So I think they've gotten Pasha a bit more on track. Another thing I think is very good for Virtus.pro is, okay, you put them against teams like Envious, against TSM, against Fnatic. Okay, they can't match up in terms of pure skill man for man, obviously. It's ridiculous to suggest they could, because those teams are so loaded. But there's like always certain little edges that VP has that get them in a game. Like, for example, I don't think Neo is a very good fragger in CSGO, but this guy wins fucking 1v1s for fun. He's unreal. Then you look at Taz. Taz is legitimately one of the worst elite level team players in the world. Take the top 4 teams in the world, top 5 teams in the world, Taz is the worst player on any of them. But put him on Train on CT side, that same fucking spot he played in 1.6, he's unreal at that spot. Lower Train inside. He's like, he's like one of the best players in the world at that spot. So even in the weaknesses, they still have little edges that no one else would have from having a weaker player. Then you add in the other players, and obviously, Snacks is fucking monster. Pasha can be good. I still think, unfortunately, this will never be fixed. Bialy will always be the most erratic player in that team. He's just like, he either is really hot or he just can just be inconsequential. But obviously, as a wild card third player, that's fine. You can do that.
Yeah,
Semmler.
I mean that's basically why I think they're always gonna be an up and down team.
Do you think they actually could be number one ever?
I don't think they're ever gonna be like consistently number one in the sense that they would like win 2 tourneys out of 3 and make the final at the third. I don't see that happening. But I do think they can still win majors.
Oh, that's a good point. That's another reason why they should stick with the lineup, because it's true. They probably won't ever be number one, and like you're saying, get this great streak going of winning. But because they're so hot, they can have a scenario where for sure they could win another major. I mean, everyone, believe it or not, Lurppis, people got butthurt at this. You remember the ESL 1 Cologne tournament where Envious was leading Fnatic and looked like they had a chance to win the tournament? People got really mad because they were on the Envious hype train when I said that I think if Virtus.pro had beaten Fnatic, Virtus.pro wins the whole tournament. Like, that was considered some like heretical statement. Think about how amazing Virtus.pro were in that tournament. Is anyone going to talk?
I'm sorry, I'm actually trying to find some stats on Virtus.pro right now, and HLTV is just
I was
not
also
cooperating.
Are
you stuck in the same
I was also doing some research for my next comment.
Buddy. Like, where is Virtus.pro on HLTV? It actually doesn't exist. There it is.
You were saying, Duncan?
I was saying ESL 1 Cologne, if Virtus.pro beats Fnatic on they win the whole tournament.
They were one unlucky round away from making the final, winning the tourney.
Like, I thought their level at that tournament was nuts.
No.
That's why, to me, here's the thing. I never thought Fnatic were the gods at that tournament when they won that fucking major. For me, that was Fnatic's version of, ironically, the year before when Nip did the miracle wins to get to the final win. Because what happened in that one is Fnatic just had incredible comebacks that are like so unlikely. Virtus.pro were just playing god tier Counter-Strike. Like, the fact that they stopped that, it's like I said, I said this line that actually Moses always quotes to me, because it is a good line. I never thought of it at the time. Basically, Fnatic in that tournament is the only team that ever actually stopped the plow. That was Virtus.pro in full plow mode, and Fnatic did the timeout, and they literally just stopped it dead and won all the rounds basically and won the tournament.
Yeah, those I think it was 14-8, and Virtus was up 1-0 in maps, and they somehow came back. And even after that, there was like a key 2v3 that Fnatic won, without which they obviously would have lost. And then in the final on Dust 2, it looked like they were going to lose Dust 2 to Envy, and Creams won that 1v3, and all of a sudden they come back and win that as well. So yeah, I do agree that it was a lot like NIP's win the year before.
Yeah.
Of course, NIP fans don't want to know that was a fluke. What I don't know, Semmler, is I really don't get this in life in general. When did fluke become a bad thing? Like, Here's the thing. Fluke is a bad thing if it's like you tripped over and in tripping over you found a coin on the floor that was worth a lot of money.
Sure.
It's not a fluke if you're two really good teams playing and one happens to massively outperform one way and then have a really great tournament. That's like, I'm not saying it's total luck. I'm saying that the luck was more than it usually is. It was more prominent than it usually is. Or forget luck. Maybe luck has a negative connotation. I don't think it does, but some people do. For me, luck, by the way, just represents chance, and every single thing in life is a degree of chance. But let's say this way, you were more fortunate. Things went a little bit more in your way. It was more favorable to circumstances.
Yeah, then you're getting into how it implies that your team isn't actually as good as you like to think that they are, right? You know, when they're winning that major, you know, you're just thinking, yeah, they're as good as I always thought they were, right?
I've always said this.
Using fluke implies that no, sorry, they aren't. It was chance. It was luck. They were just a little bit luckier that day.
Here's the sick thing about NIP. If we're looking at NIP's level and how good they are, the major they should have won was the first one, DreamHack Winter 2013. That's
Sure.
the one where they were the best at. They beat Very Games straight up in a series where it was all maps that everyone liked.
Yeah,
Then
that
they
was
were
the
against
final,
Fnatic.
man. DreamHack Winter 2013. I mean, sure, it set it up for Fnatic to have this amazing,
yeah.
you know, Pronax to win 3 majors and,
Yep.
you know, 2 of them back to back. Yeah, that's a storyline that's really amazing as well. But just NIP, Very Games, DreamHack Winter 2013. That had to be, you know, that was the final, really.
Yeah.
And NIP basically threw everything they had at Very Games. It took everything out of I mean, not to rob, obviously,
Sure.
Fnatic, because it set it up for one of the biggest wins and upset wins in CSGO history still to date. It just feels like, you know, NIP gave their all to Very Games, and then Fnatic were able to just barely catch it, NIP out. But
the other ones kill me, because I'll give you 2 examples, okay?
Sure.
So DreamHack Winter 2014, where they were actually on tournament point. On Overpass, they were in regulation on championship point, and they lost to LDLC, went overtime, and LDLC won in Overpass overtime.
Yeah.
So people will say, if you're a NIP fan, no, that was the one. That was the one we should have won. If we want to talk about should have, mate, you should have lost to ESC in the group stage. Then Hellraisers looked pretty awesome and collapsed for no reason. That happened. Then Virtus.pro looked like they were going to beat you. Somehow you beat them on Inferno, spanked them there. Then in the final, you spanked Envious on Inferno.
well, that was
LDLC at the time, who were fantastic.
Classic. Okay, go ahead.
No, go on.
No, but that was that's that situation that we keep bringing up, right? Where it's like a team where it's a real battle on map 1, and particularly like the team that's ahead then loses that first map, can't get their head back in for the second map, right? That literally happened to Virtus.pro in that semifinal match, right? Where it's like it was Nuke, if I'm not mistaken, right? The first map.
Yep. That was the one where they were at map point.
It was like, yeah, they were so close.
Lost an OT.
Couldn't close it, and then they just couldn't get their heads back into it. And
are you ready for a rant, Semmler?
what was the tournament that just happened recently where NIP actually did that to VP, though? Or no, that Virtus.pro did that to NIP. That just like, you know, really close first map, NIP didn't win it, and then Virtus.pro crushed them. That happened recently in one of the dozens of lands that we get.
I mean, the last time I can remember NIP playing Virtus.pro offline was surely ESL 1 Cologne.
They lost Train 14-16 and then got blown away in the second map. I think the series is that you're talking about.
In what tournament?
Was it Cologne?
Was it Cologne? Was it that far back?
They lost 0-2 in the quarterfinal. Well, Cologne was only in August, by the way, mate.
Yeah, well, dude. I mean, like there's.
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago.
It feels like it was an age ago. Like it was just like, oh, this must have happened last year or something. But no, it's like barely 6 months
ago. It's because in your brain you think of a year as in like. You think a year is like 10 tournaments, like 10 reasonably sized tournaments, and now 10 tournaments means like 3 months. Yeah. So when you think back to a year and you feel like, oh, how long ago? You're like, well, it was like 30, 20 tournaments ago. So you think, oh, it must have been like 2 years ago. No, it's actually like September.
Here's the one that triggers me the most, though, Semmler. You ready for another mini rant? I won't make this one too long. I'll just get the points out on this one. The one that triggers me is when NIP fans say, we should have won ESL 1 Katowice in March of this year. Because what they do is they go to the first map, the close one on Dust 2, and they say, oh, but look, if Alu hits that up shot, we win that map. So then they say, right, so we win that map. And then, you know, on the third map, we did that great comeback on Inferno, and we almost won. All correct. All things that could have won the series. But you have to be fair. If you're going to say that's what should have happened, then let's go back to the quarterfinals where they played TSM, and TSM was up something like 12-11, playing CT side of Nuke, and lost the fucking game to half buys on T side. That's supposed to happen, is it? Then go to the semi-finals. All year long, Envious and LDLC had NIP like a fucking racquetball, banging their heads off the wall, doing it through the fucking legs, doing a twirl, pirouetting, smashing that motherfucker off the wall. The one time NIP beat them, They had a miracle win in that semi where they played them on Dust 2 and Cash, Envious' best maps, and they spanked them. Oh, that was supposed to happen, was it? Were you the favourites in that one, were you motherfuckers? Well, Nip fans, hey, how many trophies did you guys win with Aloe? 0? Guess what? Envious won 8. They won 4 with the one lineup and 4 with the other one. How many of you guys you win again? 0. I thought you guys loved stats. 87 and 0. There's too many Nip fan rants in this episode already. I'm going to cut it short in that one. But you can see where that triggers me, Sam. It's like if you're going to give yourself a favour. Okay, it's like this, okay. If you get to have one miracle, I get to have one miracle. It's not only when Nip when Nip beats TSM like that, I don't go, that shouldn't happen, that's unfair. I go, wow, they did it amazing. Well, then when Fnatic beats them in that fashion, I go, wow, they did it amazing. Nip fans go, no, that shouldn't happen. Why not? Something to do with my ego that I haven't explored. Anyway,
well, what shouldn't happen, like that's the recent case of that, is like what shouldn't have happened is Fnatic winning ESL UCA. Should have been Na'Vi winning that tournament, hands down, in the bag, 16-14, 16-14.
You know what, Semmler, I've got a great story for you here.
Come on, Na'Vi!
There was a player called Potty, okay, and he played for like the first. He played for the first 6 years of the 2000s, and he was untouched in accomplishments. He won something like 9 out of 12 CPL tournaments he played at, and like 4 or 5 of those were majors. So this guy was unreal, right? And the thing about him was he was the best player, maybe ever, at clutch rounds. Because he was a star player, but he used to win all the 1v1s and all the 1v2s. So every single big win, there would always be a map where some player would come to me at the tournament and go, oh, that Potty guy's so fucking lucky. I had him on like 5 health, and then somehow he spun around and killed me. And then I knew where he was on the map, but somehow he like pre-fired that spot and killed me. He's so lucky. And you know what I used to tell those people? Join the fucking queue, mate. There's about a line of 100 people back there who all have the same story. They all think they were unlucky. It's not luck when someone does it 100 times, mate, and wins all the championships. He's phenomenally good in the clutch. Guess what else? You're bad in the clutch. They're both sides of it, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's the same for Fnatic. All these miracle wins this year. Cologne miracle win. ESL season 1 Pro League finals. What, you think Cloud9 wasn't in the driving seat for all those games? Of course they were. Fnatic wins it. ESL Season 2 Pro League Finals. Na'Vi has all these great chances to win. They blow them all. There's something about the team there. There's one consistent factor, which is these teams that win there, you know.
Which is valid as well. It really goes to show, you know, you're a championship team. I mean, Cologne as well, when they... no, not Cologne. Yes, Cologne. What am I saying? The comeback, right? The comeback when Fnatic win on Dust 2 versus Envy, which was Cologne. You know, if they keep doing it, of course, it's just, you know, there's the other side of that is like, why did Na'Vi, you know, go 16-14, 16-14 after being up like 10 round advantages and still managing to lose it? I guess Fnatic, you know, it's some of that old Nip magic, whereas like you never count Nip out of a map, right? They can run it back from any number, they can run it back from any score. And now Fnatic are that team where it's like, yeah, they're behind 10 rounds, doesn't matter, they'll still get the job done.
Put it this way, one of the problems I have with Na'Vi, okay, here we go. Here's why Na'Vi will never be the number 1 team. They have a great roster, they have a great team, they have a great structure, they're good on nearly all the maps. Here's why they'll never be the number 1 team.
Sure.
And here's why that wasn't a fluke that they lost in that fashion. It wasn't a way because they had so many advantages, but there's actually a pattern to it. Okay. If I had to pick out one team that's a top 5 team in the world who loses the most close games, it would be Na'Vi. These guys have made a career out of losing close. Think of all these series they used to have with Envious. They're always razor tight close. Like there was the one against Starladder earlier this year, which was the one where they were on overpass. Edward was about to do a 1v4, killed 3 of them, goes up to the last guy and just fucking tries to no-scope him with the AWP rather than just aim on him. This stuff happens regularly for these guys. They're the number 1 letdown team. By the way, here's a great thing. You know in the ESL Pro League when they lost that round, it was on, I think it was the Dust 2 game against Fnatic, where Flamey, it was on the last round, so he just like tilted and he didn't slam his headset on, he just really quickly took it off. Like they lost the round, so he really quickly just took his headset off and put it all down like that, right? You could tell he was tilting his tits off. I like to imagine that's what he did when I like triggered him on Twitter that one time when I was saying about how Hellraisers were bots. I like to imagine he read the tweet and then just really quickly took his headset off, like in a really passive-aggressive way. This tweet has got me so hot under the collar.
You know, I think a part of it for Na'Vi is also the fact that they don't really ever get those big blowout wins, right? Like they always have to scrape together rounds every single game they win. Like no matter how good they look, it never looks easy. Like it always looks really taxing on them. Like
they remind me of the elite version of Luminosity, because Luminosity would either grind you out to a close win or get blown out. They would never blow any big team out.
Yeah, I mean, like, basically the way Na'Vi play is if they were an athlete, like, their bodies would be broken by the time they hit 30. Like, they'd be retiring. They wouldn't be playing those extra 5 years doing pretty well.
Lurppis, here's the analogy. They would be Rafael Nadal in tennis, where what happened is he played the most grinding style, and it was really good, right? He could get back into any game. He could play anyone close. The problem is, compared to all his peers, his body is fucking shot now, and that takes its toll. And now, unfortunately, he's not even an elite player. He's dropped right off, and he's like a 9th best player or something crazy, you know.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
There's also the fact that, I know this brings everyone's hype down, Flamey doesn't do that.
I knew where you were going. I was about to bring it up.
That doesn't happen that often. So that's also why, if that happens, you have to win that time, because you can't rely on that happening next tournament. Yeah. So when he goes ham like that, that's when you've got to win, isn't it?
It seemed like
Flamey had a super good tournament.
Right, and it felt like this is it. The stars are all aligning. Like everybody's hitting shots.
Yeah.
Zeus, like everybody's really doing well. Guardian, not like in his usual explosive way of taking over the server, but he's still getting his frags in. It really felt like this is it. This is their moment. They're going to get the last tournament of the year, and I think that's like probably one of the most disappointing. I mean, it depends. It's like really good to see Fnatic win, but it's super disappointing to see that Na'Vi weren't able to close it out when it looked like they just had it in the bag. Like. It wasn't the strong Fnatic that they were playing against.
Here's the analogy for your Semmler.
Sure, go ahead.
Na'Vi right now, on a higher level, because the role players are more skilled, are the modern equivalent of the Kenny S Titan. Because the problem in that team was if Kenny S and Apex both go ham, we could win this. That almost never happened, though. Yeah, so, for example, at Cluj, Guardian was in God mode and still got spanked in the final through no fault of his own. At this tournament, Flamey was going ham. Guardian doesn't quite turn up. So for me, Flamey is the apex of this team. When he goes off, it's so hot, it's so great that you're like, wow, if you could do this. But unfortunately, he's not going to. So if the two turn up, they could still. Listen. The great thing about them is they're a bit like VP in that sense as well. They can win tournaments for sure. They will keep winning tournament titles. But the problem with them is they're never going to be like top 2.
By the way,
it's hard to see at least.
One thing to point out here is Flamey's actually 18 years old.
Yeah.
That's pretty nuts, I thought.
He wasn't the youngest. He wasn't the youngest. I think Kjervi.
Because he's gonna still get better. Like it's almost guaranteed that he's gonna be better next year than he is right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like Seized is 21, so never mind.
Yeah, he's not young.
Seized wasn't even born in a family. He was made in a test tube in the ex-Soviet Union at the end before they broke it up and became
the porcelain mask.
Yeah, he was made there. He was literally. He doesn't even have DNA. He just has steroids inside of his body. He actually is a human growth hormone. That just he doesn't have blood. It's just that go around his system, healing every single thing that's faulty with him at all times.
Nanomachines is what you're going for there, man. He's got nanotech.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So who do we move on to next?
I mean,
you pretty much done the top.
Here's the only team.
I was going to say we're talking about the good teams, right? We've talked about the good teams now.
So there's one more team. Luminosity.
Okay.
Sure, I'll give you that.
Let's start with this. Admittedly, Luminosity's new roster still has to settle. You have to figure out what the identity of that is. But I have to say, the old Luminosity roster, they have to be the most fucking efficient team in CSGO. If they ever got like 3-2 up in numbers on a round, they're going to win that round for sure. Even if they're against really good teams. I don't know what Fallen did to those guys, but they always played like textbook Counter-Strike when they were in those situations. When they won a round on T-side, you could tell it was from an actual strategy that they executed and they hit the spot they wanted to and they had the flashes and the timings and they got the right aim. That's how they would win rounds. I never watched the Luminosity upset, like a lot of upsets I saw, and thought, oh, this is a fluke, or this is like a lock, or the other team played badly. I was like, wow, they figured it out. They found the puzzle. They did what they were. Think of it this DreamHack Winter Tournament with the new lineup, where they never play Cobble, but they play it and they come up with this strategy where they come down dropper out towards the fucking A site through the connector. Who the fuck does that strategy? And it worked.
It was pretty sick, yeah.
They just made that up on the fly.
Everybody's reaction to that was like, what was that?
Put it this
what
way.
Just happened?
I think the most impressive thing about Luminosity was when TSM got him to overtime, which is usually the time where if you can't close it out in regulation, then you get blown out in OT, and then Luminosity won. I thought that was the most impressive thing they did.
Yeah, that's. I mean, man, and just individually, like Cold, like this roster, like these roster changes have just been huge. FNX, just huge clutch player apparently, and out like. He's got the experience. I mean, you guys can go. You guys can go ahead and fill in on the history lesson.
Here's the weird thing, Semmler, is that isn't who FNX was as a player. In fact, if I had to give you a modern day analogy for FNX, I would have said someone like a Flamey. He was like a rifler who had that like really tight aim, but it looks as here's how I envision a lot of these players when I watch the Crosshair. When I look at Flamey and I look at the old FNX, I always imagine they're more like wrist players who have a mildly slight higher sensitivity. And what happens with that sort of a player is when you get your aim locked on, because you can do those super fine precision movements with your wrist, you have like insane spray and you can just like wreck people's heads. But it's not as consistent as the guy who's the arm aimer who just like aims with technique. So as a result, those players tend to be a bit more up and down. So he was more like a Flamey back in MIBR. He was the guy who turned up as the second guy to go with Kogu, and then they had firepower to be able to win. What's funny is he wasn't like some god tier clutch round winner and like all 1v1s all the time. So it's weird actually that he's just suddenly started doing that in this team now, because at that tournament, Face It 3, he was fantastic, wasn't he?
I think it was like the highest clutch percentage out of like anybody there, pretty much. Like it was just FNX. Like if he's the last man alive for you in the round, like 1v2, 1v1, he's going to win it for you. And it just kept happening over and over. What was it, like 6 clutch? No, must have been more than that. For some reason 6. Lurppis, have you checked any stats recently?
No, I don't remember how many it was, but I think that's all everybody talked about.
Yeah, I think he had like 6 in one series. He had like 6 clutch rounds where he was like 6 out of 6. He just won them all, and key rounds, and then Fallen as well. Like that team also feels like it's really working quite well together. I guess the main nail that pokes out right that might get hammered down is Taco. He seems to be under some scrutiny right now, especially in the recent lands where it seems like everybody else is doing well. Fallen, FNX, Cold, Fair, like they're all having their moments. They're all got those explosive rounds. It just seems like Taco is the one right now who's trying to figure out exactly how he slots into everything.
It's weird how Freiburg's allowed to suck a dick for as long as he wants, but if Taco has one tag tournament, even Nip fans are like, obviously you should cut him. Just get a better player in, right?
No, I'm not saying cut the guy. I'm saying he's just obviously needing to, have a little bit more time for adjustment. What do you think, Tommy? And
also, I mean, you can't have 5 impact players. Like it's already very rare to have 3 people who have a bunch of like impact rounds.
I think I've got a different perspective on this one.
Here's the thing. What are you doing, dude?
Just getting some out of a bag.
Oh, is that you? Okay.
So here's the thing, Semmler. I don't think Taco's the problem, because
you don't think Taco's the problem? Okay.
Think about who he's replacing. Those guys weren't good.
Yeah, sure.
That was bad as well. So here's the thing. I agree with Lurppis. He can be the guy who just doesn't get many frags. The big problem is, if I look at that roster, the guy right now who isn't giving me what I need is Fur. That guy was a monster. He was Cold Zero before Cold Zero was Cold Zero. He was a beast when they were the old lineup. The big problem is, when they did this lineup now, I think, if I'm correct, that they took Fur off entry fragging. That guy was a monster entry fragger. So I think for some reason he's gotten lost in the mix of the roles. I don't know why. And unfortunately the team's gotten better, but somehow he's not quite the player he used to be.
At DreamHack he also... No, but wasn't it the Cold and Fair show at the DreamHack Winter?
For a few maps.
It was between the two of them as far
but
as...
But over the last few months, ever since they got Cold Zero, go look at Fern. In general, he hasn't been as impactful,
It feels like Cold took a lot of the hard fragging roles or just took over the fragging.
I mean, that's correct as well. Yeah, make him the star. But the problem is they haven't figured out yet what to do with Fur. I feel like he's the guy where they can get more out of him if they knew what they could do.
Well, I mean, the guy's still dropping 30 bombs. So, given not every map, but still consistently enough for him to have an impact. That's why it's like Taco still stands out, because he's the guy who's like consistently single-digit fragging, whereas everybody else, even Fallen is getting up into the mid to high teens. So if you're winning series, it's not a problem. But if you're losing, then he might come under scrutiny.
So here's some more history for you, Semmler. Okay. I know because of how long CS 1.6 lasted, people like to call every ex-pro a legend, right? They like to say, he was a legend of 1.6. Here's the thing, Fallen wasn't a legend of 1.6. In 1.6, he only came along for like the last 2 years, and his team at that point in time weren't an elite level team, and all he did was upset Evil Geniuses and NA teams and have the odd map where he'd be really good, okay?
He was a very...
He won against them in every... WCG won in every American tournament, etc.
I only played him once, I think.
Yeah. You were on at the IEM one. It was all the WCG
Yeah.
Pan Ams where lurppis couldn't play because he was finished. So they always would beat them down at this one, okay? So here's the thing. As he was the player where skill-wise he was sick, he just didn't have the team around him, right? So he never got to be a legend because he never had the accomplishments. Like, he never had a huge run at a big LAN. So here's the funny thing. People think now, just like with the FNX thing, oh, he must just be doing what he was doing 1.6. This all makes sense. No. What doesn't make sense is he wasn't some even leader in 1.6. He never did any of that. He was just the young guy who sits there and frags with all the veterans around him. This guy now, from what he's done in CSGO, is a fucking legend. In the span of 1 year, he created his own scene, created a top team, made a star out of one of those teams, found how to make that team win against international competition, got them practice at top international level, got them better placings, every single major top 8, got them to a point where they could get another star in, who was some undiscovered talent, Cold Zera, has now helped build up a fucking second team in his country, which he can then farm players from. This guy's like, you know the concept of bootstrapping, Semmler? This guy literally created a fucking universe out of nothing. Meanwhile, in NA, everyone's like lining up to fucking blow Sean Gares about what a god he is. Meanwhile, the guy's like behind the scenes sort of like frustrated that, you know, people don't do the things I want. Yeah, that's because he's a tactician. Fallen's the complete package, mate. He's a tactician, he's a motivator, he's a leader, he's a fucking AWPer. This guy can do it all. He's unreal.
Yeah, can't disagree, dude. Can't disagree. I mean, and not only is he, he's even got his moments in game when you're watching them in game. You're always feeling like, okay, he's always going to have that 1 or 2 rounds in the map. They're going to be key turning point rounds that could really determine the next several rounds to come up in the rest of the half, or if not the map, right? And who's the man who's going to lock it down? It's Fallen. He gets that op, and he just finds 3 frags and ends the round, and all of a sudden that's it. You know, Luminosity have got the map in the bag because of Fallen. Like, he always seems to show up in those rounds. Like, FNX is the clutch player. He's the guy you want alive at the end, but Fallen always seems to find those impact frags. It's not like Fur, where it's like he's just slowly grinding, getting a frag around, or another round he'll get 2 frags or something like that. It's just like Fallen may sit on single-digit frags until all of a sudden he gets 3 frags that basically win you the map.
Lurppis, Semmler,
Sure.
will Luminosity win a big tournament?
Will they win a big tournament? I can't see why they couldn't. They came so close to DreamHack winner. I mean, it's hard to say, though. That's an outlier. That's just like, it's a one, because it's just, they did so well at that tournament. Everything seemed to line up for them to do well at that tournament. It's hard to say that they can reproduce that kind of streak. I don't think that they could pull off that kind of streak again. Taking out Envy, it's like you basically nearly took out the top 2 teams in the world.
Took out TSM.
Yeah, like you had such an insane streak.
Took out NIP. I mean, they were 87-0 a while ago. See, I did that in fans. I came over to your side.
How many months ago? Was it 30?
Semmler, you know something?
Yeah.
That's actually one of the things that triggers me in CSGO, is that most fans, I get it, okay. If I say 87 maps, that sounds like a long time, right?
Sure.
That was about 7 or 8 months. So 87-0 ended in April of 2013. People talk as though the 87-0 went into 2014 or something. That's why when people talk about Freiburg, now, like, yeah, but it used to be good in the 87-0. What, you mean 2 years ago? 2.5 years ago? Are you out of your mind? Can I do my job badly for 2.5 years and still get paid? Well, I can't in my particular case, but obviously not. Obviously not. I stay on top, motherfucker. I keep myself in shape. I'm like Rocky. I'm actually going to get a Polish guy to help train me up if I ever fall off. So anyway, Lurppis, can Luminosity win a big tournament?
I think they could. I think, unlike a lot of the other teams who have like one-off good showings, I think they actually have a system that makes you believe that they can replicate their success, as opposed to just getting lucky and everything going their way once. I don't see why they couldn't gradually keep improving as they've been doing throughout the entire year, and eventually grab a title as well.
The big problem I have for them is, obviously with the new lineup, we only see them at 2 tournaments, so you still have to see a lot more. But when I think of this version, I think of the old one. One of the areas they did have an issue with before, part of the reason I think they never did win any big series, is aside from the fact the old lineup was less skilled, they also didn't have the deepest map pool. Like, okay, Mirage, Inferno, these maps they can get wins on. They can have the big upset. But once you get past those maps, it's hard to think of a lot of Luminosity maps. Like, okay, recently they've started playing Train, and actually, believe it or not, won some games. Like Overpass has always been an outside map for them. They sometimes play. Cobblestone's been reasonably bad actually, even though they won one recently. They almost never play Cash and Dust 2. So the only problem, one of the big problems I see for them is something has to change about the map pool. Admittedly, when you have a system, when you have tactics, that can change though. That's the difference. If you're envious, by what reason would you get battered on certain maps? You don't use tactics. If you're a team that uses really good tactics, you can end up like a Na'Vi, where you're at least decent on almost every map. At least that's my rationale. So I think that is something where they can improve, is just on map pool. I think that can get better.
Yep. And that seems like a natural progression too, and as well, that could also be something. We talked about the possibility of Nuke being reintroduced. That could also play. I mean, it could play against them or in their favor if that ever happens. So that's also another consideration.
Okay, Semmler.
Sure.
Because we're coming towards the end of the show now, I want a final topic, and this is what I'm going to give you. Okay, this is the question I need you to answer.
Okay.
You ready? Are you ready for your powers of prediction? You have to pick the player in 2016 who isn't currently a god but will become a god. Who's your money on? 2016.
Who isn't currently a god?
I mean, there's only a few gods right now. But I mean, don't just say like Olafmeister, Guardian, Snacks, Device. You know, these are obvious picks. It has to be someone else.
They're obvious gods.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That has to be.
That's why this is actually a little bit more tricky. Should I go with the real outsider? You know, I'm gonna go ahead and go with all the
Freiburg.
No, that's to say fifth fight.
Okay.
You know, Nip, they've seen it coming. They know.
Maybe they do.
Listen, is going to be the big man. I mean,
Semmler,
he's always had the game and an uncanny ability to die by falling off of ladders while holding negatives. So
as Get Right told me on stage at DreamHack Summer this year, the analysts don't know shit, especially Thorin.
True.
Because he's not in NIP. So maybe they know more than we do. Yeah. I mean, I did just tell them they were never going to win any tournaments and that they were kind of not even close to the level of Fnatic, but that was a fluke. I just got right 17 times in a row, guys. That happens every now and then. Is this whole show just like fucking sadomasochism for any NIP fan who keeps watching?
Right? I mean, if they made it this far, dude.
It's like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, I should be getting paid by NIP fans. I'm like the dominatrix for those motherfuckers. Come on, Semmler, who are you going with?
I'm curious.
The next god. Pauf. It's his year, bro.
It's not going to be Pauf.
I can go first if
okay, you can think it, Semmler.
If someone needs more time.
Who are you going with, bro?
Well, I mean, Simple is already a god, so he doesn't count. But I think he's going to be a next level god next year.
Okay.
You think Simple is going to be okay? But does this include him farming up on North American teams?
I think no.
Okay, you think that in international tournament?
No. Okay. Here's the actual pick. I just wanted to say that I think Simple is gonna get better, or not. Like he's already a god, but I think he's actually gonna be that good over a longer.
Fruit, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think at some point Navi makes a change. They pick up Styko from Hellraisers, and he becomes like a next Cold Zera.
Okay, it's official, guys. Lurppis literally just goes to HL3.org stats. That's where he gets all his opinions. He just looks at that top list, and he was going to say Xantares, but he went with Styko instead.
He's even there. Pretty sure Styko.
No, he used to be though. He used to be super high up though. He used to be one of those guys back in the day who was like super high up, and you were like, "What? Who? Oh, 20 maps. Okay, ignore that guy." Okay, so he's going to become the next Cold Zera. That's your pick. What do you think he's good at?
Huh?
What's he good at?
From the games that I've seen him play with Hellraisers this year, he looks like he's really skilled.
I mean, it's not a stretch. He is. I mean, it is a little bit of a stretch, but he is really good.
But he's also really young, so I think he's gonna keep improving. It's not like we're picking some like 24-year-old who's magically gonna reinvent the wheel on his 8th year of playing.
Well, Cold Zera is actually really young as well, isn't he? I thought he was only like 8. No, he's 21, really. Shit, he's older than I thought he was. I thought he was only.
Okay, Semmler, you've had 10 minutes now. Name someone.
I was gonna go with Cold actually, because
I don't think
that he's a god. I think that Luminosity will improve. Okay. I don't think that he's a god yet. I think he's a star, but that's not a god. Yeah. Like there's a big difference between a star and a god. So I can see Cold going up to god tier status.
It has to be said. Here's the thing. I think Cold Zero is great. I think he's a really good player. I think obviously he's a lot of potential, and his consistency is great. Unfortunately, he has some of those boosted fucking stats because half the lands he's played were NA lands.
But I'm not going off of stats. Like I'm going off.
No, I'm just saying for people who quote his stats, because his stats are fantastic. You know, he has a really high number. But you take some of the NA lands away, and you see what he is. He's a good player. He's like one. Put it this way, I don't have a problem saying he's a top 10 player in the world. Just the difference is he's not competing for like top 5 or whatever. Some ludicrous person would put him up there. You know.
No, he's not one of the best, but he's up there among like the group of better players.
So I think there's room to go.
It's like, how much can you take off of just one tournament, right?
Yeah.
Because, really, like, DreamHack Winter was just this eye-opening experience of, like, who the fuck is this guy and where the fuck did he come from to be able to go toe-to-toe with Olafmeister and shit like that? No problem at all. Like, no sweat off his brow, making it look easy. It was, remember the discussion in the Green Room, right? It was like, okay, who's actually going to get the MVP? And Cold really stood out. So I could see him being, like, the next man. I could see him.
Okay, so we know Duncan never played. He doesn't actually know anything about Counter-Strike. Somehow he's still getting paid 6 Skrilla. But
I'm like a Dren. I'm not even good at the game, but how am I getting paid over it?
So you got the fat nugs, huh?
I make YouTube videos. I'm literally a Dren. I'm literally a Dren. And I know where the bodies are buried, so no one can step against me.
Okay, so before
but
we
the difference
go,
is, though, I'm friends with Hiko. Oh, shit. What have I done? Oh, no. Anyway. Let me think.
Okay, I think we've got to end this show quick before you just burn all the remaining few bridges that allow you to leave your house. So just pick a name and then...
Who should I go with? I'm trying to think who's not a god right now.
Right?
See, I could fuck with you on this, Semmler, and you'll think I'm joking, but I could be serious here. Okay.
Semmler takes over Anders and he becomes Semmler and Anders.
See, here's the problem.
Is that it?
I'll do what Semmler did, which in fact all of you motherfuckers have done this, where you name 2 people and you just say, not really this one, but then you go into the next one.
Okay.
So the one I'll say not really.
Well, mine was a bit of a joke, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, same scenario. So here's the one that's going to sound crazy, okay, Semmler? You ready?
Hit me.
Nitro.
Okay, God tier?
I've seen him get better and better over the year, and I've noticed as the team around him's better, it facilitates him. He gets better and better. I don't know. He's not like my ultimate pick. I've got another one I picked that I think is a way more likely one. He's my real outsider though. Like that's like a deep reach where I don't think it's impossible, and people are going to get mad at that and be like, "What the fuck? He's an NA player." Have you seen some of the shit this guy's started to do though?
By the way,
if he can do that on cash, if he can take his level that he hits on cash and start having that on other maps, then yeah, dude, totally, he could be, because like what he does on cash is ridiculous.
Nitro improved significantly when Hiko joined. Like I didn't really watch Liquid that much before that, but I assume they swapped a bunch of roles.
You checked those stats today, right?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was Elige was like, basically, Hiko joining, because he automatically is going to be the lurker. No one can be the lurker if Hiko's on the team, obviously. That meant Nitro couldn't do what he used to do, which is he used to every now and then just bait in games against international teams. Well, he couldn't do that. Now he became the Forest Troll. He was the second entry guy after Elige. And guess what? That's the perfect role for him, because he's got sick aim, he's really explosive, he runs in, he takes the aim duel, he wins it. So as long as Elige's not just getting fragged instantly, you're making that room that... But that's the thing why I always used to think Forest got a bit overrated sometimes. It's why Shroud got overrated and Cloud9 when they were good. Is when you have the really die-hard entry fragger who goes in properly and makes the distraction, you're in this mad... Your office is this mad little bit of space between the entry fragger and then you coming in, where you've got like 2 or 3 seconds before people are shooting at you, where you're getting 3 shots on the side of a CT's head while he's shooting your teammate. That's where you want your superstar aimer, because then he's going to destroy teams. And it doesn't matter if the entry fragger dies, because your guy gets the 2 or the 3 kills, you know. So put Nitro in that spot as he is now, and you see him going crazy and having these big games.
Okay, your real pick.
Okay, my real pick is AZ.
AZ. Oh, fuck. How could I forget AZ?
Those last few months AZ had were fucking nuts.
No, hold up. That can't be, because Pimp was the real star in Dignitas. He wasn't AZ. AZ wasn't the one who was carrying
He was. Go back and watch when I said that.
It was Pimp who gets along with everyone, has never been cut except for Device, and is a great overall guy.
Mate, go back and look at when I said that. I said that around Gfinity Summer Masters 1, and Pimp was better than AZ at the time. AZ was much more up and down. In the big games that they lost, AZ would be the one who'd disappear a bit in terms of the stars. It was after that, when the team went to shit, that AZ snapped into the God mode and was like unstoppable even when they lost.
Okay, fair point. But I actually did pick him as the most improved player this year, I think.
So I'm going to go with AZ. And by the
Yeah.
way, let me just say this right now. I realize people have different reasons. So, for example, okay, a lot of people rated that Edward play that he had against TL on Dust 2, the 1v4, as like some crazy. I think it was against TL, right? Had as what an amazing play, highlight of the year. I get it that that's really cool and a great awareness, and I realize everyone loves the hype of the Happy Deagle clip. The problem is because half of spamming the Deagle, as Happy will tell you directly, is a bit of luck, and he didn't know they were there. I'm telling you right now, I haven't seen a clip in all of 2015 better than that AZ versus Virtus.pro Inferno clip.
Yeah, that clip was absolutely.
That's almost perfect.
Because that's actually skill, as
He
opposed
kills
to the other
4
clip.
people with Deagle headshots, and the other one he kills with his Colt spray down. And here's the part people don't know. I don't know if you know this part, Lurppis, but when he kills Taz at the end, he had like 1 health. So if he doesn't kill him with the first bullet, it's over.
While.
It's over if he doesn't hit that headshot instantly. That round is fucking unreal. That round is absolutely unreal. That's the round of the year for me. I haven't seen anything better than that.
I agree.
So I'm going with the boy AZ Skins.
I actually like our picks. We'll have to do a recap a year from now.
Yeah, reasonable.
See how we fared.
Yeah. I'm actually rewatching the AZ clip right now.
It's good, right? It's pretty good.
All right, guys.
All right. Any final words, Semmler?
No, thanks for having me, bro. Always
I'm
a
sure
pleasure.
we'll do this again in the
along.
future.
My cheeks ache from how much I've been smiling, so that's a good sign. Thanks a lot.
I'm sure we can do it again in the future. Although I actually said that to you. You're actually, I don't know if people know this, you were actually on the first ever episode, and then you were like, yeah, let's do some more podcasts. And like a year later, I just got you on for the second one. So maybe I'll make it just 6 months this time. We'll see.
Awesome. Something to look forward to, bro. Thanks. I think you were just salty because of, that was the one where you made predictions about who was going to be the more effective French team, right? Titan or LDLC at the time.
I mean, I didn't know one of them was going to get banned, their second best player. So there is that, right? There is that. So, yeah.
It's all right. We'll find something else to get a little bit of a bet going on this year, right?
The problem is I like to leave you wanting more, Semmler. I like to be the guy where I leave the room on a high, on a good joke, and then you're like, oh, I miss that guy. He always had the best jokes and stuff. And then when I come back, you appreciate me more, That's the way I like our relationship to work. So, Lurppis, any final words?
That was a lot of fun. We'll do this again sometime in the coming year.
And obviously you can see Semmler doing all the events, doing commentary, and Lurppis does columns for Splice and probably some more stuff in the new year, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay. Right, that's the end. Thanks to Alpha Draft.